You, hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Are you tired of the same old podcasts with the same old panels and the same old rhetoric? So am I. So come spend time with me, where you can have a laugh, be entertained, and learn something. I'm your host, Nova, and welcome to School of Thought. Class is in session. Welcome for another fun night with me, your host, Nova Star at School of Thought, which will be changing to Nova Star Podcast. I have spoken to some people. Some people think I shouldn't do it, but I think also for moving ahead for brands acceptability and presentation, that's probably the best idea for me to go. Anyways, Sean, if you're still in the audience, I will be getting with you tomorrow about our financial Thursdays. I've been getting slammed left and right with all kinds of stuff, hence the drag on it. Another unplanned stream, but I watched something that was interesting today. I watched something with Michaela Peterson on a subject that has impacted my life in the most negative and most profound way: mold. We're going to delve right into that in just a moment. I also want to wish Trippy a happy stream and success. Break a leg, my friend. Let's see. I'm going to talk about my doctor, Deanna Winham, who will be coming on to the stream shortly. Not tonight, but coming soon. Her practice at Whole Human Life in Oklahoma. She's licensed in many states, more of top tier care, much like a Dr. Nick Delgado, who is just live, by the way. Nick, I hope your stream is doing fantastic, and we will be chatting soon also. So she gave me a recommendation and a whole things of to do, and I was comparing some of the things that she's having me do versus, say, Michaela. Michaela, if when you see this, I wrote you an email, honey, long before you got really, really big on YouTube. You should have listened to me. You should have saw my doctor sooner. You would have been in and out of this mess a lot quicker. Pumping Vinyl. Hey, baby, how you doing? And so we're going to take a look at what she's facing, or we're going to correspond with my story and my mold exposure, which I've been re-exposed. I was doing great. Got out of it the first time. Did Mrs. Winham's treatment, feeling the best that I had felt since my exposure and diagnosis, only to move into a brand new home and had mold creeping inside of every single one of the vents in every part of the house because they were unsealed from the ducts, creating moisture. And I was like so sick. And everybody was like, why aren't you streaming? Why aren't you streaming? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Well, I couldn't. It's that bad. It does everything to you. It messes with your hormones. If you're a woman, your cycles. It messes with your brain cognitive function. Messes with your lungs. It can actually give you lung disease. It can give you all types of problems, including an autoimmune disease, which it gave me. And, you know, it really pisses me off because I spent so much time deflecting things from the system only to feel like, gosh, damn it, they got me. You know, it's like one of those situations. I did everything right, super healthy. Everything is grass-fed, everything's organic, taking high-end supplements, you know, exercising, doing this, doing that, making sure hormone function is proper, eliminating as much other toxic everything that you possibly can for a normal person. You know, your water supply is important, your food supply is important. Try to limit your exposure to plastics as much as possible, only to go like, gosh, damn it, they got me. Yeah, well, that's my conspiracy theorist little parts popping out. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying that for fun. But still, you get where I'm going with this. Now, I know this subject will probably be not as interesting for some people as others, but I'm telling you right now, the stats are in. More than 50% of the houses in America, we're not talking about Europe, we're not talking about Asia, we're not talking about any of that stuff. More than 50% of all homes in America have some type of mold. And children are extremely susceptible. Women are more susceptible than men. Yes, you men are a little more resilient. I'll give you that. Our systems are far more complex than yours. It affects babies. It affects your pets. You know what I mean? I mean, when the toxic mold hit my house, and then I didn't even know it was there, and I walked into a closet that I hadn't. It was like a storage closet. And I walked into it, and I swung it open. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is all of this?" Destroyed all my clothes, all my shoes, everything that was stored in there, except for things that were in a couple plastic totes. Thank God, those were like family pictures and whatnot. But it wiped everything out. Leather jackets, uh, expensive shoes, by the way. All right, like I had expensive high-end stuff in there. I was still pissed about it. So it took out all of that. It took my health down, and I was more susceptible at that time because I just had a baby, which, believe it or not, that's the thing. Because when you're pregnant and then you're breastfeeding, your immune system is way down. Did anybody know that? Your immune system for a woman is way down. Therefore, everything that you're around, you're gonna get hit with it way harder. And so I was just prime conditions to get the issue. Oh, you love the shirt? Thank you. It's a little dress, actually. It's like a little skirt and top. And so we're going to start bringing up the video. And as they're talking about it, I'm going to give you guys other clues in. And then I'll stop in the middle and we will take a look at something that Deanna is having me redo. My MoldCo tox testing again, which was out of pocket the first time. This time I'll have insurance help a little bit, thank God, because it was really expensive at the time. But it showed, and I can't find, because I swapped phones, but I had the picture on my other phone and I can't find it right now, so it must be on my other hard drive. But it showed the percentages of everything that was toxic in my system. I brought this up the other day. And it showed I had black mold in my system, and the max amount before it becomes too toxic for the body to handle is about 1%. Mine was about 5%. So there we go. No lies, no joke. There we go. So let's add her to the stage. Let me fix this just a wee skosh bit. I do not like the changes that YouTube is doing right now, as YouTube is purging everything it possibly can get its mitts on and about Epstein to save its own ass, I'm sure. But I don't like some of the changes it's doing either. So let's get going.
You're probably going to find this surprising. There isn't an ICD code for mold-related illness. There's a code for if you got bit by a turtle, but there isn't a code for if you have mold-related illness. And also,
I'm sure that will be changing shortly. There needs to be a code for mold illness because I've had it twice now.
If you think back over the last 200 years, there have been decades where people have been exposed to certain chemicals without knowing they were making them sick. So lead, people were putting it on their face and makeup.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Because they didn't know it was making them sick. And it was only banned in gasoline in the 80s because they figured out, oh, we can't even have lead in gasoline.
Baby powder. That's also been a thing.
That makes people
in the talc.
Sick.
This place gives me the creeps.
So people have been exposed to biotoxins repeatedly, but then you grow up and we have AI and you're like, well, we don't have that anymore. Ariana, welcome to my podcast.
Hi, Michaela. Excited to be here.
I am so excited to talk about this. Before we get started, so we're going to cover mold, amongst other things, immune system issues. But I wanted to, and I've done this before on my podcast, a long time ago, but I wanted to bring you on to talk because I think that this is a bigger problem for people to know about than diet. I know it's missing in a lot of the biohacking spheres. They're kind of onto it, but it's not a major focus. And I think mold and people's awareness of mold really needs to grow because it's everywhere and it's making a lot of people sick. And they're being misdiagnosed with random autoimmune symptoms.
Yep.
So I've brought you here to talk.
And creating autoimmune diseases. Hi. I'm one of them. Went from perfectly healthy to now I have a damn autoimmune disease.
About what you're doing and what you went through and what people can do to fix their health. So I guess Can we start off by you just doing a bit of an intro about who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you summarized that super well. So thank you for teeing that up. So hi, Ariana Thacker, founder and CEO of MoldCo. I'm here from a personal health journey. So started off as a patient first. And prior to starting MoldCo, was a chemical engineer, also built a venture capital firm, really focused on this intersection of consumer and science. So in a strange way, it felt like so many of these events in my life led up to building MoldCo. And I'm really excited to just drive value for humanity in this way.
So
Now, she's not the only clinic that deals with it, but she's going to be one of the more well-known ones. I'll put it to you that way. There's another one here out in Dallas, and I looked that one up, but I don't really need to do that because I have Deanna. So
what happened? You were a chemical engineer and did you start a VC?
Yeah, I started a firm called Conscience VC doing early stage investments, pre-seed and seed, largely biohealth and deep tech.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you move to Miami and get sick?
That's right. Yeah. So unknown to me, there was mold throughout the HVAC system. I haven't had a history of health issues. I moved in, and in a 6.5 month time frame of being in this unit, I developed CIRS. So just started experiencing near debilitating symptoms. I had just a handful of functional hours in the day. I was largely in bed. I even purchased a hospital bed tray to do some work from my bed just because of how fatigued I was feeling. I was having to reread emails multiple times over. You're familiar with all the symptoms. So it presents as something called the symptom clusters online.
We'll go through symptoms. They only list some of them, and I can confirm all of them for you. Some of them are pretty disgusting, to be quite frank. Like, it's not like pus or anything is squirting out. Nothing like that. But the body starts to bloat. A matter of fact, I started prior to figuring out that there was more, but right before I looked up and I started seeing mold coming through the ceiling in every single room, I had started having panic attacks and I started waking up in the middle of the night. My feeling like my heart is racing. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me because there's no reason to have that, but those are part of the symptoms. You can start having rapid heartbeat, panic attacks, anxiety, almost like anxiety, but it's not really quite like anxiety. It just feels like a racing heart for absolutely no reason. And I would go to sleep for 2-3 hours and boom, wake up and my adrenaline is like on doom, 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 and then couldn't go back to sleep. And everybody's looking at me like, why can't you stream, Star? You're doing so well in the beginning. I know, but I was getting so sick. I couldn't even breathe inside my own home. And I one day I told Self, I was like, I only feel remotely better is when I'm outside. And he's like, well, stay outside. I'm like, I would, but there's a million mosquitoes and they're all coming for me at the same time. And it's a bloody ass hot over here. So,
and connected the dots after the fact, after I got sick, that mold could cause these health issues beyond asthma, allergies, or fungal infections. It's a completely distinct animal at the zoo. It's nothing like those illnesses from mold.
Children are often the best philosophers. They're always asking why.
How am I supposed to live my life? What is good, right, correct, proper, best?
Phenomenon. So some days
we'll just scoop past. We love you, Petersons, but I don't want to sit there for all this
Dad
time.
has, and he's had all his, like I said, we can get into the blood work and everything and how you test for it.
Yeah.
But CIRS.
Okay, so one of the blood works that you can get for all this type of stuff, including formaldehyde, which oddly enough I have that in my system, different types of BPA and many other things. I'm going to have to ask Deanna for a copy of that test. I tried to log in today and I couldn't even log into it. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll get a copy and then I'll show all of you. But the test is called mycotox. And sometimes your insurance covers it. Sometimes it doesn't. At least will cover part of it. And then they go in and it's all detectable. So everything that I was experiencing was backed up by science. I'm not crazy. Here, let's start again.
If somebody's watching who has weird health issues, maybe chronic fatigue and stuff, how does it present? How does it differ between people?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll run through the list of symptoms and then also some deeper cut. So some people might see themselves as we go through the symptoms. So the fatigue is not just feeling tired, it's this almost push crash phenomenon. So some days you can feel good, other days you feel like you're set behind, especially if you work out and you exert yourself. The brain fog is pretty peculiar. It feels like you're just fuzzy, but it also feels like you're not able to
do it.
Learn new information. So poor knowledge assimilation. An interesting.
I was having that. I was like trying to read stuff, and I was like having to read it over and over and over again. I'm like, what is wrong? I can't retain anything. What's wrong with me? You feel like you can't learn anything. You can't retain anything. And for me, at least on my second go around, my first go around, I didn't have the autoimmune markers were starting to creep in, but I didn't have it yet. So I had better days. On the second go around, the re-exposure, it was just flat, dead exhaustion. And I'm kind of a tough broad. So like I'll push myself to do things, even when I shouldn't, but it was getting to the point I couldn't even push through anymore.
Interesting thing I've heard amongst patients and noticed for myself is I would see people speaking English and register that they were speaking a language I was familiar with, but I wasn't able to absorb the words that they were saying. It was like very peculiar.
Yes.
Other people feel like their brain is on.
It's like Charlie Brown. That's how people start sounding. And it's like, well, I don't know what you're saying to me right now. You know they're talking English. You know you speak the same language. She's right. But you can't understand what they're saying for some reason.
On fire,
like a block.
Inflammation going through their brain and through their veins. Due to the high TGF-beta-1 levels, we also see hair falling out. For me, it looked like little furry critters every time I would brush my hair, far more than normal. The far majority of patients.
Correct. It can make your hair fall out. I started to experience some of that, which autoimmune disease can also do that. But it wasn't autoimmune flaring up like that. It was the re-exposure. I was like, oh, what the hell's going on? My hair's falling out again? There's something wrong. Like all of these things started going, all of the bells started ringing off, and to the point where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to need to make an appointment, and then drove to Oklahoma to see her. And then only figured out when I came back that it was mold. And I was going through the list of all the different things that was going on. It was absolutely horrific.
The patients experience weight gain versus weight loss, but we do see a small subset with pretty extreme weight loss, but most people weight gain, often due to leptin resistance, due to mold exposure. We also see gastrointestinal issues, so that tends. Okay.
She's mentioned gastrointestinal issues. I had told Deanna when I was there with her, I was like, I've got nothing but bloating. I'm putting on weight. I'm not eating, and I'm barely eating. I was barely eating anything. There's no reason to put on any weight. And I'm putting on weight, bloated, and like your bowels feel inflamed, almost like IBS. I started having almost like IBS symptoms, but more probably a little bit more on the, don't be grossed out or anything, but some people can experience more constipation as to, like having to go. So I was dealing with some of that too.
Tends to present first, this IBS type response where alternating constipation, diarrhea. We also see sleep issues, frequent urination at night, people having to get up multiple times in the middle of the night.
Same.
And also overcompensating by drinking a lot more water too.
Thirsty.
So this is just this multi-symptom issue that presents. It's not just one acute issue in the body. So you're experiencing the cognitive issues. You're also experiencing hormonal changes, especially in women. We notice that this impacts 3 to 1 women to men so far in clinical practice.
Oh.
Yeah.
3 to 1 men. What did I start off by saying? I said that women are far more biologically sensitive than men. Men are more resilient. Our systems are more complex because we make babies. It is what it is. And so now you see why more women are being affected, and also autoimmune due to chemical overload in the body. From everything that we're getting exposed to, things and the polymer and all the crap inside, and the fumes and the things that they treat your carpets with, your upholstery in your couches, your sofas, And then on top of it, the clothes that you're wearing, all of that is also what, polyester or some form of polyester. Like, I know today I'm wearing a little bit of polyester. I don't care. It's cute. I don't have a whole lot of polyester. So, today I'm going to give myself a little grace on it. But in general, your bed is also it's getting sprayed with all types of stuff. Now I got to be careful what I say, because I don't want anybody to come back and try and sue me. But your body is constantly being exposed to stuff it wasn't before. And if you look at Europe has a smaller issue with mold. I was talking to Self about it not too long ago. And I was like, I know we're using hell of a lot more vinyls and more plastics in our building materials. So that would create condensation inside of the homes in America. But what the hell else is the difference? I know that they use more natural materials in general in Europe. And he goes, they don't have duct systems over there. I was like, oh shit. Because he's been there several times. I have not. And I'm certainly not going right now. But they don't have duct systems like we do. So I guess we need to figure something out better, huh?
This isn't published, but this is in clinical observation. What we've seen is 60% of the women that end up developing CIRS have heavy periods. Like I'm talking like 10 pads a day plus, extreme pain with their menstrual cycle.
This affected me. Exactly what she's taught. Most of the key points that she's talking about, especially on the secondary exposure, started to affect me, and extremely painful. At some point, it started shortening my cycles. I was like, am I going into early menopause or something? Now that I've been out of the place for going on a little over 90 days, everything's getting back to normal. Praise the Lord for that. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Thank God. And now I'm going back through the cell. It's called CellCore. I should have brought the box out to show everybody. And it's a system of 5 different things inside of it that help to eliminate everything out of the body. Because what people don't understand, much like Lyme disease, mold creates like, I want to say like a biofilm around the cells. And you have to penetrate past that biofilm in order to rid the body.
Changes in their period, so it's no longer consistent, multiple miscarriages, even infertility, early onset menopause, etc. So these are some of the health impacts we've noticed in women that do develop CIRS. And the list goes on and on. Essentially, it's not just one acute response, and it's not just when you're presented with mold like an allergy. It's not just having a reaction when you're in the environment. It's something that stays with you in this inflammatory way, impacting the brain, the gut, the vascular system, hormonal.
It likes to hide in different places in the body. Hence me saying it creates biofilm around cells. It will even hide in the nasal passages in here. Then you have to kill it.
System, respiratory system, etc.
Those are basically all the symptoms I had. So I can like track.
Yep, and respiratory.
I've been obviously trying to figure out why did I get so sick as a child and have.
Hello, tell it. No, this is live. Welcome in. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you are on Kick and you prefer, you can see me right now on YouTube.
These autoimmune issues, severe psych issues, and chronic fatigue. Like what was going on? Because my body was just breaking down, and tracked it back down to every single building I've lived in had severe water damage.
Sometimes I listen to Michaela on certain things. I'm like going, she's a little bit of a hypochondriac, like the carnivore diet for over 8 years is a bit on the extreme side. And I remember one time she was talking about one of her later pregnancies, and she's like, she reached the max point of it and everything started tasting like blueberries. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you even be pregnant and only eat meat? Because you need carbohydrates and you need fat. I mean, I know there's fat in the meat, but my God, you need more nutrients than just meat for you and the baby. How the hell can you even do that? Like something psychosomatical, my dear. Are you so far to the point where everything just kind of seems like it's this big giant ball of spaghetti mess, so some people get. But I do realize that she does have autoimmune issues. She does in fact have that. and now that I'm dealing with it, I'm starting to think, my God, maybe more of this is getting, hi Missy, I'm starting to think maybe more of it's getting stirred up in people through mold, even mildew. Like everybody can't handle mildew either. If I get around mildew, I can tell. Now that I've been through this, I can tell if there's mildew, and now it's like, oh shit, now there's mold. Great.
And it was just like, I lived in 2 places once I went to university, and I didn't have very much money. So they were like terrifying places where the ceiling fell in 2 of the buildings I was in,
Wow.
which is like severe water damage. And I was not okay in any way, cognitively,
Yep.
chronic fatigue. One of the things I had when I moved, and then I kind of got better with diet. It like band-aided it. So then I was like, okay, diet's the cure to all these health problems. And then 6 years into the diet, I think it was 6 years into the diet, I moved to Miami, and I started getting some of the autoimmune symptoms that diet had completely resolved, but my diet hadn't changed. And I was like, what's left to change? And at that point I was like, do I have a salt sensitivity? No, like, I don't even know if people have salt sensitivities, but I was like, is sparkling water doing it? Like, I have no variables left to play with. I had air purifiers in my house. My house was super clean, and my HVAC was riddled with mold. And it would like it destroyed me over like a 4-month period. The place I lived before that in Miami was also moldy. And I had kind of known that, but really nice building, mold. I ended up having a miscarriage there. Didn't know why that happened, and then kind of pieced it back together because I was very sick at the time. But my symptoms, one of the main one was like debilitating insomnia as well as the chronic fatigue. So like weakness. I was on the couch for like 4 months at the last place when I finally figured it out. But
that was starting to happen to me. I started progressing to the point where I had such bad chronic fatigue, but I couldn't stay asleep because it was affecting my sleep, and it messes with your heart rate also. So like my heart rate was going off like crazy, and so I couldn't stay asleep. So everything she's talking about, I have experienced. It's not all in our heads.
But I was like, whatever, I'm just tired. I don't know. I wasn't really thinking about it, I guess. But I was waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, like panicking, like wide awake. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to sleep again.
Yep.
Having heart palpitations. I had heart palpitations really badly, which stops you from sleeping. And then it got so bad that I couldn't do emails anymore. So just the action of like, when you have an email, there's usually a problem in the email. And sometimes you have to do like 2 types of solutions to fix the problem. And I didn't have the cognitive ability to be like, one solution leads to this, leads to fixing the email. And I was like, I can't work. And that was probably the day I figured out it was mold, and then was like, I need a couple of weeks off to get my brain back because I can't answer emails anymore. I took a break from the podcast, moved, but it was really tricky at that time to find a doctor that knew what this was. The only reason I pieced together was...
Again, Michaela, I wrote you an email before you got really big. You should have seen my doctor. She would have spotted it real quick. She went through it also.
Mold was because I'd done a couple of podcasts about mold before, and I was like, well, that's not my problem, but maybe other people are sick from it. And then realized there were some patterns in the house with like water damage, and it kind of clicked, but I couldn't find a doctor. I had to actually fly somewhere to see a doctor that would prescribe a binder that would start helping me detox. So what you've developed with MoldCo, which I think everybody should be aware of, solves that entire problem. And this was it 3 years ago for me? I think it was 3 years.
Or the same protocol that I am now going back on. I had to stop taking it for a little bit because it was wrecking me. It just wrecks me. Like I just started again yesterday, and she told me, here, take this part of the system, the 4th pill. It's the most important part of the pill. And she's like, see how bad that affects your stomach. Because when I started to take it the first time, I was so sick. And I also had been taking antibiotics. So I had basically no good gut flora whatsoever. So don't get all weirded out or anything. But the minute I took it, my stomach went bloop, 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 and then expanded like 2.5 times maybe 3 times its normal size, and then straight up all gas. Felt so sick I had to lay down. I almost barfed all over the place. So, but now that I've been back on really good really good system for my gut flora again, probiotics and whatnot. Now I tried it again yesterday. I'm reintroducing it now that I'm off of the antibiotics from being sick. I was like, okay, I don't feel great, but I think I can handle it. So now we're back on that. And those are called CellCore. All right. So I'm not sure what this lady is using just yet, but that system is called CellCore.
3 years ago for me when I started getting treated for CIRS. But tell us about what MoldCo does.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry you went through that. And
it was great, actually. I spent 10 years trying to figure out my health, being like, what's at the bottom? There's a root cause. What's the root cause? Going down all these rabbit holes. And then when I finally got sick on the diet, I was like, oh my gosh, it's mold. And then since I've done, people should know this too, since I've done a couple of treatments, I did CIRS treatment, and then I did some gut treatments, which I'll talk about on another podcast. I've been able to eat like healthy paleo.
Okay, now check it out. So they're talking about CIRS, CIRS, an acronym for Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome, is an acquired medical condition characterized by innate immune dysregulation followed by respiratory exposure to water-damaged building, WDB. This chronic syndrome involves a range of symptoms that simultaneously affecting multiple organ systems. It doesn't just affect one part of the body, it affects many parts of your organs inside of your system. This is very dangerous. And it's growing in America.
Paleo foods again.
Awesome.
I'm still on the meat diet because I still feel the best on it. But if I eat something, it's not like this inflammatory absolute catastrophe. It's more of a normal, like, maybe I don't feel as good when I'm not in ketosis or something.
She doesn't feel as good when she's eating those things. Now, I'm not going to totally speak for her, but I can tell you one reason is because she no longer has the gut bacteria to handle those foods. So your body and your gut flora will get used to certain things that you're eating. And then the minute you've removed something from the protocol and then you want to reintroduce something back into it, your body goes, oh, whoa, what the hell is that? And it can't hardly digest it. So what she needs is a high-end probiotics and enzymes. If you're having any issues after you eat certain types of foods, and we're not talking about necessarily lactose intolerance people, but when you eat something and it's pretty kind of normal and you really shouldn't have an issue with it, you're lacking the enzymes to break down those foods, those fats, those carbohydrates in the system. And that's what you need to reintroduce every time you eat, is you just take one of these good enzymes. I take them occasionally. I don't take them all the time because I'm on all these other things. So my body's pretty good. And I know what I can pretty much handle. And then I avoid all those other things.
Or something, but it's normal. And that's after I've been on this diet since 2017. So it's after so long on the diet. Staying on the diet didn't resolve things. It was going after mold that actually ended up resolving
Let's see if I can
things.
Speed this up just a tad.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. It's just a big deal.
I feel the same way. And what you described is what so many patients describe as well, where they discover it so far down the line, and often they're referred to so many different specialists. They go through this ping pong and sequence of gaslighting, and maybe they go through functional health clinics too, where they're just thrown guesswork and they end up spending tens of thousands of dollars. So what we're doing at MoldCo is just shortening that entire cycle of pain and time spent and money spent by these patients to find the most evidence-based solutions in the field developed from 30 years of research. And that includes lab testing. So we do the Shoemaker biomarkers, which includes the highest signal lab test for immune and inflammatory markers related to CIRS. That includes MMP9, MSH, TGF-beta1, C4a, VEGF, et cetera. So these are the markers that are consistently off following mold exposure, leading to an inflammatory event. So we have that. We also have the HLA haplotype testing too. As you know, there's a genetic susceptibility impacting 1 in 4 Americans. So we test that with a cheek swab. I love cheek.
Yay. I'm the 1 in 4. Wee.
cheek swabs because I was really phobic of needles going into this whole journey.
Nice.
Yeah. It is nice. I'm like, okay, the more cheek swabs, the better. And we also have a dust test too. So we're looking for some of those fungal strains in the home and prevalence rates for that. So that's on the lab testing side. And then on the care side, what we've done was translate Dr. Shoemaker's work into what's now a virtual clinic. So we have our protocol following his approach, starting with the colesevelam binders instead of cholestyramine for quite a few reasons. The second step is an EDTA and xylitol-based nasal spray to address MARCoNS in the nasal passages. And the third step is VIP.
I'm going to ask Deanna about that one because I might need that nasal passage one. I'm a singer actually, and I was doing really good prior to getting re-exposure. And now it's to the point I'm just constantly congested and having issues. And there's no way, most singers have to go on a steroid, especially when they have postnasal drip like I do, because I've had my nose broken, but I also have humongous allergy issues. And God only knows, we can only see why you get even more allergy issues than when you go through all this crap. It totally makes sense now.
VIP, so basal intestinal polypeptide, and we label that detox, clear, and repair. So we're guiding these patients through this journey. There's concierge care where you can ping your specialist at any time. So we have that on the care side, and we've cut the cost there for patients. Our estimates are about 1/10 to 100th the cost of what they would normally pay going through traditional care for mold-related illness, which, as you know, is pretty hard to access in itself. It often takes months, if not years, to even get off the wait list or even find these specialized providers.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, it's incredible. So it's telehealth. Where are you available and where are you going to be available?
Yeah, so we're live in 8 states now for care and 46 states for labs. We'll be live in all 50 states by Q1 2026. So we're on track for that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we're really excited. Yeah.
That's huge. The nice thing about the CIRS, so after going down so many rabbit holes for health, and I went down I got really far out there. The nice thing about CIRS is there is
we know you got out there.
ton of research behind it. And these blood markers, you can actually, if you want, go and look at peer-reviewed literature on each blood marker. I had never heard of any of the blood markers, maybe a few of them, but the major ones, I hadn't heard of them from having an autoimmune disorder for like 20 years. I never had C4A or MMP9 tested, which are super.
Yeah, what if you would have listened to me in my email to you years ago before any of you knew me, before she got really big? I saw her one time on an interview before she even had a podcast, and I located her and I sent her an email, and damn it, well, it went to the junk mail, I'm sure.
Super interesting biomarkers, and these are all solid things people can test that show massive problems, and then you can look at the literature and go, oh yeah, this shouldn't be 10 times above the upper limit range. Something's very wrong here.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to you, I haven't heard of any of these biomarkers prior to getting sick. And what we normally see too is that the normal markers tested for autoimmune conditions for most of the patients end up looking normal.
My buddy in the house.
Even more perplexing. You go to your immunologist or allergist and the lab tests getting assigned to you show up normal and you know you're sick. So at that point, the doctor's like, you know what, maybe it's all in your head, or maybe you just need anxiety medication or just take a break because this is probably...
No, they're just general practitioners. They're just regular sawbones and most of them suck. I said it first. You want the best care, you want to see people like Nick Delgado. You want the best care, concierge care. What they're referring to is what the politicians, the celebrities, the elitists, the rich, the wealthy, that's who they see. They see Nick Delgado, they see Deanna Winham at Whole Human Life. They don't see regular sawbones. And the worst that, I talked to her one time, we had this conversation, her and I chit chat. I was like, it's really annoying to me that you get all these people who are very, very ill. And then I know these things about you and different types of care and protocols. And I tell them about it and they just go, but they think their doctor is God and their doctor has their best interests. And I'm not a jerk by any standpoint. People do the best that they can, right? But even doctors, they don't know everything. And the doctors that get trained the traditional way, they don't know anything whatsoever about supplementation. Zero. They know zero about diet. They know zero. They know very little about little. What they do know and what they do push is what Big Pharma tells them to do. And what they do know is they push operations because that's how they make their money. So, you've got cancer, whatever, hair, go through chemo, go through this, go through that. But there's other protocols that you could do that are far safer, far healthier, and that won't cause all those other issues to spread into the body. Now, mind you, I am not a medical professional, and then I'm giving strictly my opinion and my experience. So let's play that again for everybody, the disclaimer.
The views and expressions, opinions, and stuff on this channel are probably crap because it's a woman and I'm just done with this and I want to burn it all down. But every time I try to open my mouth, I get hurt by that fucking clown. Well, I got something to say about School of Thought. Her body was made for What did I tell you about not rating the lines the way they're presented? Come here. Okay, I'll do it right. The views and opinions expressed on this channel are just that. Don't take anything too hard and don't get offended or else you'll end up like me.
All right, so just so everybody remembers, I'm voicing my opinion. I'm not a medical professional, and nor am I diagnosing you or telling you what to do, but I'm listing my experience. And so let's continue on.
Probably burnout. And it's a progressive illness. So that statement ends up being quite dangerous for these patients as they continue to have exposure and ongoing inflammation in the body.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what hit like my family. So we've got some serious genetics interplayed in there, but we had this like familial, really terrible depression, like that my great grandpa spent the last 30 years on the couch, just kind of sitting there. And then my grandpa, kind of the same in his mid 50s, just deteriorated. And it was like, oh, well, you have this weird genetic depression. They can't really identify the gene, but it seems to run in your family. And then I'm completely positive that it's mold related. And diet helped. I also ended up moving into a house that I think was a little bit better at the same time, but diet helped massively. But it didn't help enough to get rid of the root cause. Like you can't just band-aid it over with dietary changes, which I found out the hard way after like 8 years on the diet. But it's huge. It's huge. So you're going to do MoldCo and expand that.
Interesting enough that people with cognitive issues, even certain types of mental illness, as soon as you take away sugar and refined carbohydrates and whatnot in the diet, and you get them on a high-end, say, salmon wild caught, which is full of omega-3s and those types of fatty chains in that type of a diet, amazingly, they've done studies. A lot of those cognitive issues lift and go away. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm voicing my opinion. Do your own due diligence and research. Brain foods, exactly. Glad to have you here, SB.
And that. You also have LimeCo in the works.
Yeah, so the parent company for these different storefronts addressing what we believe are the biggest medical blind spots to achieve aspirational health is the ImmuneCo.
Hello.
So our vision is to spin out
Thread,
MoldCo,
nice
which
to have
we've
you
done. Next
in.
up is LimeCo. Next up is LongCo for long COVID.
Nice.
Yeah,
LongCo.
yeah, LongCo. You like that? And what we've done to really have this be high signal and evidence based is also amass the largest data set in the world for mold. And we'll continue that thread for LimeCo and LongCo. So we've amassed thousands of biospecimens, close to 10,000 patient history
Hey,
forms,
baby, nice
at
to see you.
360-degree analysis of these patients, looking
Remember,
at
if
their
you're
environmental history.
Remember, if you're lurking about, to like and to subscribe. It helps me out in the algorithms.
HLA types, key biomarkers, past medical
Who's
history.
rating me? Tell them thank you.
RNA-seq data, et cetera. So our vision is to not just provide the most accessible and affordable solutions for these illnesses not currently addressed by standard medical care, but also drive the standard of care through this very evidence-based way, just to help humanity get better and reverse the tides on chronic illness, which, as you know, impacts now 76% of U.S. adults have at least one chronic illness. That number jumps somewhere in the 90s.
Still
over
love
the age
you,
of
Mama.
64. So it's almost an inevitability for people here in the U.S. to get sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Okay, a few things. I spent some time in Switzerland this year, and they've got more like house mandated ERVs, which take. I didn't know this about HVAC. So when you have a regular
Hey,
HVAC,
Lacey, all the
just
tomato
recirculates
peoples,
indoor air.
welcome
And
in.
when I
Thank
hadn't
you,
thought
Sarah. I
about it
love
at
you,
all,
Mama.
just like HVAC sounds good. I always thought that was fresh air. It's not. It's indoor air recirculated, unless you have an ERV attached to it or an HRV or something that brings in fresh air and then recirculates it. So part of
Did you hear what she just said? Our HVAC systems only recirculate our dead, gross air. I had no idea about that. You know, and interestingly enough, when I was going through this again on the second time, right before I did an emergency move, I had to do an emergency move in October. I was like, no more, out, done. My house was constantly covered in dust. And I would clean that crap and it would be back within hours. And by the next day, it was damn near like I never did a thing. And it was just constant dust, which to me is signaling that mold produces some type of particle into the air. I almost bet you. I need to do a research on that. So if anybody knows, drop it in the chat.
Part of the problem here is a major housing issue where all the air inside, you end up like it gets moldy somehow, and then you just recirculate. What are you doing, just out of curiosity? What do you tell people if they end up having CIRS and they figured out there's mold exposure? Do you say you need to remediate?
Yes.
Step one.
It's step one. We also still start treatment if patients.
If we were talking to my doctor, she would say, burn the house down to the studs. But it's unfortunate, but burn it down with everything inside of it, because anything that's inside of it is now carrying that, which another reason why I'm having to change my bed. And now I'm going to have to change out my couch too, which I need to, but it's kind of not financially always, availability.
Patients are still in the environment
That's money.
to be safe, which is the case for the majority of the patients that we're treating. Fortunately for renters, they have more options than owners.
Yeah.
So they can break the lease. They can initiate a cure notice to their landlord. They can work with their landlord, ideally to help correct the issues. New state laws are coming out in favor of the tenant now, which I love to see. I think there's a lot of movement and initiative to continue to support tenants across the U.S. So there's that. There's also the last option of just relocating if you're not able to have corrective measures by your landlord. There's also isolation techniques too, really identifying where the source is and trying to find ways to keep that where it is.
So is that like...
Meaning they tape off one side of the room, including all of the vents, so none of that will penetrate into the other part of the house, and then they remediate in those sections. I am currently right now still undergoing legal issues with the place that I was in, because I brought it to their attention and they told me SOL. So, hey, the type of person that I am, we'll play and we'll see who wins.
You think it's a bathroom, or you think it's an area of the house, and you kind of like
you isolate
plastic it off?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like a Band-Aid solution there, and always work with an IEP, a qualified environmental professional, to navigate that. Alternatively, for owners, the only option tends to be remediation. So we have a network of IEPs across the U.S. that we refer out to patients. And depending on the patient, if they tend to be more sensitive, we also know who in our network is better equipped to handle a more medically informed remediation and inspection too.
Yeah.
So it tends to be an investment, but we also encourage patients to start care early, because this is a progressive illness and patients do tend to get better even when they're still in the environment on care. So it's
That's
still something
cool.
we encourage. Yeah. And there's also air purifiers and other things you can do to just get fresh air as well in the home. So
Okay, interesting. Well, that's less dire. I think I got...
Yes, I had help in cleaning up the house, and I was able to go in there for a while, and it wasn't as bad as it was before, but I still wasn't feeling very good. I'll put it to you that way. Necessary to get out ASAP.
I was sick for my entire life. I got so sick that I was like, if I am near mold, I feel like I'm going to die. Just in general. And I was like, how is anyone who's in my situation going to do this without having hordes of money?
Yep.
But I didn't start I just left. I didn't start treatment in there.
yeah, starting treatment when under a qualified medical professional. Of course, this isn't medical advice. Everyone's a snowflake in their journey, and a lot of factors have to be considered. And then also, we have noticed improvement with the air purifiers too. And we think that's Band-Aid until you can get somewhere better. But if that's the best you can do right now in the current state you're in to reach a level of stability with your health, and also it takes a toll on your mental health too, just to feel more safe and secure.
I was using some of my air filters, and now that I'm out of that situation, I've thrown them away, because they've been circulating that crap for so long. It's no longer, to me, safe. So I'm buying new ones of that too. Like she said, by the time you have this issue, it takes a hordes of money. Why? Because your clothes are infested, your furniture is infested, your rugs are infested, your curtains are infested, your linens are infested, and so on and so on and so on. It's basically like you may as well just burn it down and start over, but that's not feasible for 99% of us, right? So that's where we're all at. That's where I'm at. But she has the money. She has the do-re-mi to get it done.
If you're in your home, that's a great place to get started.
Yeah. I got an air purifier. This is before I knew about mold, but I thought I was allergic to something in a condo I was living in Toronto. And I thought it was the carpet because they might have had animals there. I was like, I'm probably allergic.
I thought it looked frizzy today. I brushed it out. I was like, oh my God, I don't have time to like get my hair all wet and put all the crap in it. Just brush it and go. I look like a frizzy held mess, but thank you. I'm glad that you like it.
The carpet. I think it was mold, but I ended up getting an air purifier, and it actually wasn't a very good one. I have like great ones from IQ Air now that I love, but it was just one from Amazon, and I was wearing an Aura ring, and my deep sleep went from 6 minutes a night to 2 hours by putting an air purifier by my bed, and it wasn't even a high-end air purifier. And I was like, oh, I
like this lady. She knows what I'm talking about. Her and I could have a great discussion. He says, no wonder why I've been getting sick more often after not getting sick in over 4 years. Yeah, it's an issue. Check your pipes, check your toilets. If you start seeing like even mold in your toilets, that means there's something going on right in that area. Take a look in your ducts. Check your vents. I mean, you obviously can't go inside the duct, but you could possibly get a free estimate from an HVAC company. I did that in order to start building a case at my last property. She says, some of these landlords are just homeowners, and I came from an era where landlords followed through on issues presented. I know, right? But that's not how it is anymore. Now it's all about the money. And, if there's a problem, get rid of the people. Don't get rid of the problem and get new ass in there. That's what they do. They just keep trading people over, and then they keep capitalizing until they get into a legal issue and get pinched.
I must have been allergic to the carpet and then didn't really think about it again. But yeah, air purifiers are key.
That's significant. 6 minutes to 2 hours. That's
it was
huge.
6 minutes. It was horrible for I kind of attribute it. This was when my dad was sick again, like 5 years ago. And I was like, okay, it's trauma. I'm like having trouble sleeping because I was having insomnia and like night terrors basically when my mom had cancer and life was hell.
Yep.
And so I was attributing almost all of my like mental well-being to situational. And then I got an air purifier and it increased my deep sleep. And I was like, oh, so this isn't just, it's so easy when you have cognitive problems, depending on how severe they are. But if they're mostly mood related, to be like, something in my life is wrong. So relationship, work, like, because you end up getting hyper stressed about everything in your life. So you're like, no, I'm stressed out because I'm about to move, or I'm stressed out because somebody at work is annoying, when it's really a health problem that's making you stress out about everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's compounding the stress in your life. You're having exposure to things and you think it's just situational, like she said, but it's actually, in reality, it's compounding that small discomfort, that small stressor, and turning it into a much larger anxiety-ridden heart palpitations. Here, let me stick my head in the freezer, put something cold on there so I don't have another episode. It's one of those, post traumatic disorder things going on. So you might, if you're experiencing that, you might want to check and make sure that it's not a health issue or an environmentally triggered health issue. Remember, I am not a doctor. I do know a lot of things, but I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice.
And
this is my opinion.
About the mental health element of this a bit, but anxiety and depression is really common, even to the point of
nice to see you again.
Ideation. So we see that in these patients. And there's also an interesting gene that we've noted as being upregulated in a subset of patients, which is known as the trauma gene too. And I think that makes sense. I'm not sure if it's chicken or egg, but it's essentially an intruder in your home that has wrecked your health and your life. So that is a traumatic event that has happened. So it makes sense to me that something like that would be upregulated if it wasn't that in advance.
I kind of like that chair she's sitting on. I'll take 2 of those and then a matching tuft couch to match. I would prefer a lighter color though, like cream or something, but that's just me.
That cause susceptibility to the illness.
It's a complete scam.
Oh, commercial
too, and I found out how much.
Yoinks, let's scoop. How's that? Yoinks, doink, doink, doink. Da. There we go, right there.
On COVID treatment, CIRS can be triggered by a number of biotoxins, right?
Yep.
So mold seems to be the one that is in. Do you know what percentage of houses are impacted?
So there's different studies for this. Our best guess is roughly 50% of homes. That was the more.
I started off the podcast mentioning this. I believe it's higher than that personally. That's just in America, people that are reporting, people that even know. I would say it's probably more like 65%. Because if I've rented 3 buildings in a row that have had it, that's pretty high odds, isn't it? So it's like 1 out of 10, right? No, it's 3 out of 10. So that's higher. That's really high.
The more reliable studies that we've seen, I've heard estimates as high as 70%.
Oh, there we go.
Feels a bit high to me. But I think there's a number of different trends that could support that number. One, increased natural disasters and flooding events to this move towards more energy efficient buildings causing.
I hope it woke you up in the best way possible. Remember to like and subscribe and come back and see me.
Microbial growth in the homes. 3, the rate of impacted homes ramping up faster than what's getting remediated, because this does tend to be a more significant financial cost for homes. So I can see that over time. And if it's not in the home, it could be in your office or school place.
True.
85% of commercial buildings have had historic water damage, 45% ongoing water damage. That's an EPA stat. 24 to 48 hours for mold to grow following water intrusion. So I'd say it's north of 50% is our best guess, probably closer to 50%, if not 70.
Something that was super convincing to me too, because I was trying to convince
my first major exposure in California. It was in an old ass house, but before I rented it, I had checked it because I had inventory. I had moved my I was moving my business out from my new offices and whatnot, and changing location, moving about 5 hours away, and that house was built in 1918, but I had went through the entire house. I checked everything, and I didn't find any signs of water damage until I found all my clothes in that storage area, and all my shoes and everything else that was in there that had gotten destroyed that I was using as storage. And when I figured that out, I had a guy show up and detect where the water was coming from. And sure enough, it was coming from a pipe right there underneath. And that was originally where they had their washer and dryer, and then they had moved it outside after that. So lo and behold, even though I was looking, it got past me. So double check everything that you've got. And if you're unsure, but you know there's still something that seems to be suspicious, you can reach out to a mold specialist, and sometimes they will do free estimates, and they will come out and do at least like a detection. They have like a water detector. It's a little electrical device. Sometimes those are very, very handy.
It's my dad. I was like, mold is at the bottom. Finally found the root cause. Was one, there was a huge housing growth period like over 30 years ago where a lot of America was built. So a lot of the houses we see now are old houses that at some point had water damage. So that makes things
no, there
too.
is no mold specialist in the chat right now. If there are
dorms,
please make us
and
known.
Military housing too.
So
not that I'm asking you to pull out numbers.
Yeah. So,
reveal thyself.
We're looking into the military housing because it's been cited as the number one issue. Mold is the number one issue on the military basis. We actually went to a mold health or a military health conference to scope that out further. There's over 20,000 work orders, I believe, in a 2-year period related to mold. There's a number of these military families going to DC looking for reform. Change the Air is also really leaning in to help the military families too. There's Operation Counter Mold as well. So there is a lot more.
Old Joe says, only when I taste it in my bread. It tastes a little bitter, doesn't it? Kind of nasty. You should cook it before you eat it. Toast it, Old Joe.
More attention being focused on the military bases. And then for the school systems and the universities, I am noting an increase in lawsuits. Recently, there was a $35 million claim by students in the dorm. And we also get a number of emails from concerned parents for their kids in these different universities. And I'm also hearing it from different law firms as well. So I think we're going to see an uptick in the legal claims by universities.
I don't know who that is, but go ahead and talk
for
to
mold
them.
exposure in the dorm, similar to what happened to you. And I also think there's going to be increased repair of the bases. There's another data point there too. Dr. Heyman, who's a shoemaker certified physician, partnered with Normie, which is a big organization that helps certify inspectors and remediators to help do something on the military bases. I think it's creating informed guidelines to reduce mold exposure for our servicemen and women, which makes sense in terms of military readiness. If you're getting exposed to mold, you're probably not your best self.
Yeah.
So
Thank God.
I think there's an economic incentive there as well.
Oh, that's good. So going back to the long COVID, other things that can trigger immune response.
Yeah, government, you get your people in there and you make your people sick, and then you got to turn around and treat them and pay for that too. Yeah, stop exposing our military guys and ladies to this stuff. Let's not do that anymore.
Responses. What do you have any idea what percentage of people exhibit CIRS that haven't been exposed to mold? That it's just
not
been
high,
Lyme
unfortunately,
or long COVID, or is mold usually twined with other kind of infections?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's something we're trying to better understand too. Most of the published works in the space have been on the CIRS water damage building subtype. There's a little bit on Pfiesteria and Ciguatera and dinoflagellates and some of these other biotoxins as well. There's this thesis as well from our team that COVID was a priming event for worse outcomes for mold exposure too. And what we've also noticed with these patients, especially those further progressed in the illness, is they tend to have a number of these microbial not infections, but exposures. Like we see upregulated Epstein-Barr virus, the Lyme antigens, Bartonella antigens. So we're starting to see these patterns in these patients later stage as well, parasites, et cetera. So I think there's some
parasite cleanse. They're actually linking mold exposure to possible issues for, like, say, dementia in the future and cancer. Believe it or not. So it's important that if you have been exposed to this, remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm not really giving medical advice. I'm giving my own journey. And if you think what I'm saying seems to be of value to you, then do some due diligence and speak to a professional, obviously. But it's important to do a cleanse. Remember, I was talking about how it creates a biofilm around the cells, much like Lyme disease does. And so you have to break through that biofilm in order to kill it to begin with. Otherwise, it will sit there and do other things to the body, hence where they're talking about the possibility of cancer, possibility of cognitive decline diseases, and other things of that nature.
There's something there. We're not entirely certain what's going on, but it seems to be this concept of microbial burden over time leading to worse outcomes for patients that are inflammatory in nature. Okay. But I think mold is a very large percentage of the patients impacted, and that tends to be the right starting point for these patients too.
I know, right? B says, I can see how the mold can exacerbate the system and activate cells. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then all those markers in the blood turns into something else. And for mine, turned into lupus. Wonderful, huh? Stay away from mold, people, because I was perfectly healthy prior to this. And the only reason I was like getting sick, I started coming down with an ear infection on my right side for 3 months, and I almost lost my hearing from it. My ears are okay now, but damn, what? I know, right? Yeah, but that's how I was like, what is going on? So I couldn't figure out what the hell was wrong with me. And they were giving me antibiotics.
MoldCo versus with LymeCo.
Yeah. So you'd recommend people that have Lyme as their primary diagnosis or long COVID as their primary diagnosis?
Neither does I. Or nobody in my family has lupus either. So the mere fact that I've got it, I'm pretty pissed off about it. Very pissed off about it.
To just look into. I mean, they might as well do the CIRS blood work at least, but mold exposure.
Yeah, and the CIRS blood work too, it's sensitive, but not specific for the illness. So it's more of a checklist. So you have to have exposure. Often that's mold in the home, the representative symptoms too.
Yes, it can kill you without being properly treated. And I'm doing an unconventional treatment. I'm on peptides, thiamycin alpha 1, which you can find in liver, apparently, when you eat animal liver. It does something to the immune system. I'm also taking LDN. I'm on my doctor's protocol for it, which is low dose naltrexone, which is used in multiple different types of clinical studies and multiple different ailments, including cancers and whatnot. But it's an immune booster. So if you've got any types of questions or you want to check it out, you can also find her at wholehumanlife.com. Wonderful, wonderful doctor, wonderful concierge care.
The symptom clusters we discussed, and then also the laboratory testing. Would you include all of that with the genetic susceptibility too, which is specific for mold-related illness, is what we've seen. It's over 90% of patients that have the same HLA haplotypes get sick with CIRS when they're exposed to mold. Then that paints the picture, reinforcing that mold could be at the root. I think a lot more diagnostics are needed if you want to get so personalized and so specific, but I also think starting with mold and really sussing that out is a great initial step. And over time, us as a company will layer on more specificity with our lab testing and treatments as we build out these different storefronts.
Yeah, I mean, that's also what's super exciting about MoldCo and your like companies and parent company and everything is the more people sign up, go through it, the more data you have to help more people, which is like what is so needed. Is the treatment for long COVID and Lyme that end up presenting with CIRS symptoms, is it the same treatment as mold treatment?
This is a tricky question because there's answers I'm getting from our team and different providers in the space, and then where we want to take the company to. So I do want us to do a lot more research first and really scope out the best and most efficacious and safest possible solution. So I think it'll be a meeting of the minds. But what we're seeing right now in clinical practice for post-Lyme syndrome, different from acute Lyme, and for long COVID, we are seeing some resolution of symptoms following the Shoemaker protocol. But I do want to caveat that with, we want just a lot more.
Miss Deanna Winham also has a protocol for people suffering with long COVID, by the way, and or any types of, I can't go too far with it because of legal issues, but check her out. She has protocols for all kinds of things, including issues with having vaccines. All right. You've heard it here first. Remember, I'm not a doctor, and I have to keep quoting this. I know it's annoying, but if I don't keep quoting this, they'll try and get me on a technicality. So I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving per se medical advice. I'm giving my journey and information, and it is up to you, the viewer, to do your due diligence and to find your journey.
A lot more research in the space, and we'll do our diligence and really understand what's the best possible solution for these patients, because there is a lot of really interesting research happening now across prominent universities and private research groups, and Mount Sinai too we're tracking, and a number of independent researchers. So we're just surveying the field and seeing what the right path forward is.
How fringe is this? Like, how much is the government aware of this? How much is mainstream medicine aware of this? Like, I know that from my
mainstream medicine is not very aware of this. The government doesn't give a shit. So that answer A and B.
Experience, if you go to a regular doctor,
yeah,
they're just like, you're insane. If you say,
now, funny thing that they mentioned regular doctor. When I went to my regular doctor, because sometimes I can't always get to Deanna for like a common cold, or like, hey, I sprained my ankle or something like that, right? So you would go to somebody you could see immediately. So I told my immediate doctor, and he said to me, he's like, it's just because you've had a baby and you're just tired because you don't sleep after having a baby. And I was like, sir, I know my body very, very well. I said, there's something wrong. And he's like, well, according to what I'm seeing here, I don't see anything. I'm like, no, you're missing something. And then him and I got into a drop down dead argument multiple times. One about how to treat COVID. I asked him all kinds of questions, and he denied me everything because I had asked him about getting certain treatments, which I don't want to talk about right now. And he told me, I'm not going to prescribe you that. Number two, I told him I wanted to check my thyroid. And he's like, okay, I'll write you I'll write you a thing for that. I was like, how many blood tests are we doing for the thyroid? AKA, are we checking all 4 hormones? He's like, oh no, we're only going to check the 2. I was like, no, I want all 4 checked. He's like, you don't need all 4 checked. Only 2 matter. I said, bullshit. If any one of those 4 are off, your hair can fall out. You can start putting on weight. You can start having problems with your skin, your eyes, all kinds of stuff. And finally, he conceded and said, okay, fine, I'll check all 4, but you don't need all 4. I was like, motherfucker, pardon my bad language. I'm like, I've been in some of the best clinics in Southern California, top-notch, cutting-edge medical facilities, okay? Don't you talk to me, you low-end piece of shit. That's how like, seriously, that's how I was getting about it.
You say mold is making you can be allergic
he
to
hated
it,
me at
like
that,
a normal
at the
tree
end.
allergy type thing, but it can't destroy your immune system. Basically, that's like fringe. So, but you're more into like the research and what's being done at hospitals and things. So how much is this infiltrating like mainstream medical people?
This year has been a turning point for that question for many reasons. One, George Washington University just launched a program for this following the Shoemaker protocol and Shoemaker approach. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's the first medical program focused on this. That was this.
Yes, ma'am. She goes, B says, it is frustrating when you know your stuff and professionals try to gaslight you. Yes. And to steer you away from better care that they know that they could provide you, but they don't want to provide you that. And everybody should start asking them the questions. Why don't they want to provide us better care? Why are they trying to keep us with Band-Aid solutions and pump us full of pharmaceuticals as opposed to getting to the root cause and healing people? What happened to the Hippocratic Oath is what I would like to know.
Was this year. So Dr. Shoemaker, our founding physician, is very much a part of that. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think there's just been an enormous cultural awakening happening now. A number of different providers and clinics have reached out to us wanting to learn and stay educated. That they actually serve as some of our referral partners too. I believe different governmental research organizations are now interested in this because one of those has reached out to us. So it's an area that they're looking to scope out further. And I think a lot of our research too will help ignite the field, because once you see that evidence and it's undeniable, how could there not be resources attributed towards this and better health? This year was a turning point in the medical community and the scientific community. Not to say there aren't skeptics. I think there will always be skeptics in the near term, but I think that opinion's shifting really quickly.
Oh, that's really promising.
Yeah.
It makes so much more sense. Like there's so many people trying to figure out like what's going on with America. And like I said, for years, I was like, well, it's the diet. And I think a lot of people still think that. And there are massive problems with the diet. And there's massive problems about how much processed foods people are eating. And that definitely contributes to things.
Yes.
But once I learned what mold can do to leptin to increase hunger, and saw that happening to people.
Like, and give you sugar cravings. It can give you sugar cravings. Like, I had stopped drinking soda. And by the time I was 19, I stopped drinking all soda. Seriously. And then by the time I got re-exposure, I was like, man, I really want soda. Like, what is going on? I totally lost the taste for it. Like, most of the times if I was to taste it, it's like, oh God. And you could taste all the chemicals. It doesn't even taste normal anymore, like normal old soda did with like just the pure cane sugar and stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to crave it again. So that would explain that.
People who were eating healthily and still getting sick was like, okay, what if part of the reason people are having such, I mean, what's your opinion on this? Do you think mold is a big factor behind the serious obesity epidemic we're seeing?
No.
Like leading people to eating more processed foods and sugar and things?
No.
It's a fungus. It's like, I felt like my house was eating me when I was in my house in Miami. I was like, I can't get off the couch. I think it was just trying to decompose me from the.
No, Michaela, and she's from Canada. She's not an American. And as an American, I can tell her most Americans. And if you go into the grocery store and you pass by each other with the cart, and you're like, oh, what do they get? Oh, what are they buying? Most of it's junk. So no, Michaela, I don't believe that is necessarily the reason. I do believe for some people it's a contributing factor. Those of us who are more sensitive to it, but I don't believe that's necessarily the reason why obesity is mold is the epidemic for obesity in America. No.
From the inside out.
I felt the same way. Yeah. Super weird. And my thought on that too is that it's a highly intelligent microorganism.
I quietly judge people when they drive by me, when they walk by me with their carts. I'm like, what are they getting? And then I might stick my nose up there. I'm like, no, you should not be eating that. I'm so bad.
Organism that really understands our biology. Like, we co-evolved with it too. So I'm like, this is like a stealth sniper that has infiltrated my systems and now wreaking havoc. So my mind, same wavelength there. It is our medical team's opinion, so Dr. Shoemaker, Dr. Scott McMahon, and others, that mold is a significant factor in driving the obesity issues that we have here.
Okay, well, they think otherwise. That's fine.
I don't have firm data to say either way, but we do see that with CIRS, and we estimate 25 million Americans are severely impacted. So that's quite a bit. And we also see mold being at the root of neurodegenerative issues. There's, Dr. Dale Bredesen talks about inhalational Alzheimer's and mycotoxins being at the root of that.
What did I tell you? I've known this for years, though. What did I tell you? No, I didn't watch for some people were like, you watched the whole video and then you got your commentary from that. No, actually I didn't. I watched about 15 minutes because I have a life. All right. But I knew she had a doctor on. So I was like, okay, this should be pretty rock and she should be pretty on point. And she is. So I know all this stuff already. Thank you very much. Pat on the back.
Of that, we see that in the published research too, in IBS and fibromyalgia and ME/CFS, et cetera. So it's our thesis that yes, obesity, yes, several of these other chronic conditions, and yes, to the mental health issues too. And the NIH just updated their website as well to now account for these non-infection, allergy, asthma-related health issues due to mold.
Yeah.
It's now citing the immune and inflammatory response and the mental health issues as well. So the NIH just updated that this year.
Oh, wow.
Too. Yeah. On the mold website.
That's big.
It's big.
I know there have been some recent studies on Parkinson's and exposure to pesticides and an increased risk of Parkinson's, depending on where you live. And that research is pretty solid. I found research when I was doing a deep dive because I couldn't believe it was mold. I was like, it's the air. That's crazy. And there's a lot of solid research under different names around the world for some sort of inhaled neurodegenerative disorder. So I remember there were quite a few peer-reviewed studies on sick building syndrome. So it wasn't called CIRS, it was sick building syndrome. There was something I think out of Europe that was wet
Interesting.
and dampness syndrome. It was something like that.
Yep.
And so it turns out, which was, it's shocking how at the forefront you are with this, because it's named different things around the world and they're like, well, we don't really know what's going on. It's this weird, like, it's kind of like people decompose, honestly, which is what, and I know that sounds out there, but
No, it's true, because if you look at buildings with black mold in them, what are they doing? They're decomposing. That's what it does. It goes in to the materials, and the next thing you know, there's dust and stuff I just answered my question. There's dust and stuff everywhere, and it's breaking the building down back to its organic matter. So obviously, and then some people are like, well, why would mold be attracted to the body? Because your body is more than likely, because the body's made up of what, more than 60% water, 65% water. So why not? It's like the perfect environment. It's warm, it's circulating, it's got water based. Like, hell yeah, it's like having a good old time in there.
it's kind of what mold does. But it's under a whole bunch of different names, and there's hordes of studies on them. I listed them on my website. So they're all listed, all the ones I could find on biotoxin.com, because I was like, compared to diet research, there's so much research here on like toxin-caused neurodegenerative disorders.
Wow.
And it's scary. Like people, especially people who are more health-minded, but everybody should be aware that like you can fix your diet, you can fix a whole bunch of things, and if you don't fix your air and you've been sick in the past from this, that you can still decline, which is crazy.
It's crazy. And I also love that you connected the dots in that way. You're probably going to find this surprising. There isn't an ICD code for mold-related illness. There's a code.
We got codes for everything, but we don't got a code for that. That's ridiculous. Well, I bet you there's going to be one soon.
Code for suspected exposure, but not.
I know. Let's write a letter to RFK. Yeah. Maybe I could get him on the show. We'll see what happens.
The health impacts of that, and there's a code for if you got bit by a turtle, but there isn't.
Or wishful thinking. You know, it could happen.
Mold-related illness in any way, shape, or form, despite all these different names. Isn't that wild?
No, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And also, if you think back, think back over the last like 200 years, there have been decades or hundreds of years where people have been exposed to certain chemicals without knowing they were making them sick. So lead.
Oh yeah.
Like back in the day, a long time ago, people were putting it on their face and makeup.
Oh my gosh.
Because they didn't know it was making them sick. And it was only banned in...
And mercury. I think Cleopatra used to do that also, didn't she?
Gasoline in the 80s, because they figured out,
and one of the queens of England, Elizabeth, I believe she did that. The so-called Virgin Queen.
Can't even have lead in gasoline because that makes people sick. And then there was asbestos, which was put in like every house, basically. I had relatives, like great aunts, these are people I didn't know, great aunt and uncle that died from asbestos poisoning.
Oh, wow.
He worked with asbestos and his wife washed his clothes. And that was enough to get them.
Can you imagine your husband being exposed to that, but you're not doing any of that stuff, but just because you're washing his clothes, you die from it? Being on, air ventilators and everything, that was a lung issue.
Them both.
That's horrible.
So people have been exposed to biotoxins repeatedly, but then you grow up and it's like 2025 and we have AI and you're like, well, we don't have that anymore. And that just seems to not be true, which is just, I don't know. It's crazy. But it makes more sense than, your entire population is just dying. It makes more sense that maybe everyone's being exposed to something that they're not aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ripple effects from that are significant. Like, how do we retool our entire infrastructure if this is true? And it's huge if true, right? If this is at the root of so many different chronic conditions, then we would have to essentially rip out and replace so much of what we've built out here. And that's just an intractable problem, right? Like, how do we even solve something like that? So I think there's ignorance is bliss as a big part of this, like, subconscious block from even wanting to address the problem.
Definitely.
Right? Like, you almost don't want to know, but you have to know, and your family has to know, because this is a progressive illness.
Yeah, I agree. That was kind of Dad's response when I was like, this percentage. So the data I read was like 50 to 80% of houses. Yep. And I was like, it's every house, because I was just sick all the time. So I was like, they're all water damaged. But even 50% of houses is catastrophic. And he was
My dog's snoring back there.
50% of houses are impacted, and 1 in 4 people can get very sick. Although no one, even people without the genetics, probably shouldn't be living in a moldy house. Like,
Nope.
it doesn't make you invincible to mold. You maybe just don't get sick as fast.
Yep.
But he was like, what does that mean for like America and society? How are you going to fix that? Like, how are you going to fix it? But then you guys popped around, and so you're like trying to fix it, which is cool.
Yeah, and I love the innovation that's happening on the environmental side. I think the environmental side is a more complicated problem to solve. Every building is so different. There's so much dramatic irony in terms of what was built, and it may not match up with the drawings, and it may even be in the building materials initially used, left outside in the rain, or maybe a single loose nail head on your roof, or flashing not properly installed. Like, there's just so much you don't know, and the cost and
Now you got to worry about if something's missing on the roof too. I was thinking about the other day. I was like, what if they didn't install something right here? How am I going to figure this out? I can't go through a third re-exposure. I can't do it physically. I just can't do it. So I'm thinking to myself, how can I be proactive? Should I get another subcontractor out here? Is there another little device you could wave around my house and tell me, is there anything missing or that I need to do?
in time is
Daunting.
so intensive to have someone come in and scope out every nook and cranny and really figure that out. But I think there's some really interesting solutions being introduced. It's still getting developed. Like, I haven't seen anything that's like the savior or the holy grail opportunity, but I think it's coming. And now with more national attention on this issue, I think there's going to be a whole crop of founders and entrepreneurs and builders really trying to help humanity in this way. So I'm just really excited about that. And maybe this won't be such an enormous problem where we just want to turn a blind eye and not even address it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, things are looking a lot more promising than they were 3 years ago. Like, you've popped up. So
whole new profit margin for you entrepreneurs out there. And me as an entrepreneur is encouraging you to step into the arena and help out our environmental issues with toxic mold that is abounding in America. Come on, guys. Come on, girls. Let's do this.
So now people can get telehealth. So labs are easier to access. That's huge. So I think anybody who has a weird chronic illness should get their labs done and see, because that was my problem. And it took me, I've been trying to figure it out since 2015. So it took like, well, I guess 8 years of really solidly digging.
Yeah.
And I was living with air purifiers. So I was like, my air is clean. But because I was so sick prior to that, that wasn't good enough for me. So I didn't think about it. But it took me 8 years to figure out. And it turns out it was mold. And that's why my family has been sick. And my brother wasn't sick. So we never thought, oh, it's the house. My dog was sick.
Yeah, the dog.
I was sick. My mom was sick. My dad was sick. And my brother was fine. And so you don't think, well, you're all being exposed to the same thing. Like, he lived in the black mold dungeon basement I grew up in too.
Yeah.
But you know what happened? They found out.
That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be fine forever, Michaela. It could pop up later on in life, inducing another issue. But there are some people, as long as they can get out of it, their body will rebound.
We moved into a place that was built in, I think, 1915, like a semi-detached place in Toronto. And my parents gutted the whole thing and rebuilt it and dug out the basement. And behind the drywall, a plumber left a cap off a pipe. And no one figured it out for 18 years. So when they finally tore out the basement, once we left, my mom redid the basement and took out the drywall. And it was black mold all around the basement. And that's where we grew up.
Wow.
Which is like one cap left off behind drywall. Like, it's crazy. People should also be more educated on buildings, because you move in and you're just like, it looks pretty. And that's about as much as people know about buildings, which turns out it's kind of boring, but it's kind of like learning taxes. You kind of need to know.
You need to know.
And this is a little bit more important, I would say.
Yeah, you need to know. And I'm seeing more.
How are you going to know everything unless you were there the entire time it's being built? How are you going to know, Michaela? Like, let's be realistic here. You'd have to stand there, or somebody would have to stand there and witness the whole thing being built from the bottom up. That's not feasible.
More home buyers optimizing for requiring a mold inspection before signing anything. You touched on a really important point.
I agree
Not
with
everyone in
that
the household
part.
is impacted the same.
Yeah.
Definitely pay attention if someone's getting mysteriously sick in your home. That could be the canary in the coal mine, right? Don't wait until the whole family's sick or until it's too far along. And yeah, I think also knowing some of the common signs, even in the absence of visible mold, like that earthy, musty odor, is really important.
That's a big
Or
one.
by proxy, like like paint peeling, cracks. There's just a long checklist of these different things to be aware of that indicates that water damage happened. Even high indoor humidity above 70%. That's a telltale sign there could be a hidden mold issue too. In the HVAC systems, if you see dust, essentially accumulating on the outside of the vents, that's what happened to me. It was dust is essentially organic matter. That's mold food. I talk about the mold triangle. You have water intrusion, lack of airflow, and dust all combined. And now you have a situation that's prime for microbial growth. And
now, see, she just mentioned the dust thing that I brought up a little bit ago. I was just kind of connecting the dots. Pattern recognition, people. If you don't got it, work on it. But she's talking about it being around the vents. Why would it, if it's up in the ceilings, it wouldn't be around the vents. It would be all over your house, which was my problem. Now I'm in this place. I'm barely getting any dust whatsoever. Just normal, every week or so, there's a little bit. So over there, it was every day after the hour that I did it. And I'm like going, why is there so much dust? I can't keep up. And I'm allergic to dust, especially moldy dust. So I bet you that's mold's way of crapping in the air or something like that. That's disgusting, but it's kind of, I'm kind of thinking that's kind of what it's doing. Breaking down the organic matter and whatever organisms it's expelling also, because it expels gas, right? That's an organism. It's going to be expelling other things. This is kind of scary, actually.
And that also includes like the endotoxins and some of these other bacterial species too. It's not just the mold. So just getting more fluent on the dynamics of the space you're living in. And most Americans spend 90% of their time indoors. So it's worth optimizing for.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me see. We covered a bunch.
Because America is warm over here. Okay. Europe isn't necessarily getting as warm as we get over here. We're more south, right? Closer to that part of the equator.
Now I can get to my list of questions I actually had prepared. Let's see. Oh, one thing. Have you guys figured out? So a lot of people think black mold is the bad one, and the other molds are the fine ones.
No, those aren't fine
What's the
either.
truth here?
There are several bad molds. Some are worse than others, but we love the Hurts Me Too test. We love the ERMI test. You get a score of how those inflammation causing mold species map to human health data too. So there's just way more molds, and it's not just the molds, it's also their fragments, the mycotoxins, the VOCs, some of these bacterial species too. There's emerging research now from our founding team and some of our clinical research partners around endotoxins and actinobacteria. So the issue is far greater than that, and even air spore traps.
Bare minimum. I'm glad you're back here. By the way, I don't think you were here the last stream, but that's okay. He says the vents will condensate during AC months. I leave my central fan running 24/7, 365. So do I, especially in states like Texas, because it's bloody hot over here. And there's a lot of humidity, and it's a perfect breeding ground. And nobody hangs around outside in Texas because why? It's too damn hot, or it's too cold, or it's too windy, or there's a thunderstorm and you're going to get electrocuted if you stand outside too long.
Sampling won't pick up on many of the fragments, and we think there's possibly 100 times the level of the fragments in the air too. So it's this particulate matter that you're also inhaling.
There we go.
The list goes on and on, but I wouldn't have the mindset that, if it's not black mold, it's not harmful to me. It's just not the case.
No, that's not the case at all.
Testing. So that house that destroyed my health in Miami, we had a mold inspector go in. I don't know how some of these people get jobs because they have no idea what they're doing. They just look around. They're like, well, everything's not covered in mold, so you're good, which is basically what my house inspector did. But what's the problem? What's the proper way to test a house? Because my experience was you can't just hire a mold testing company because most of them have no idea what they're doing. So how do you do it?
I think that's true. I would look for someone certified. There's NORME certification, IICRC, ACAC. So find someone who's stacked in certifications, find someone who's very highly rated. It's all they do. It's not a subset of a pest company. Try to avoid that. It's usually a good sign if your inspector is not on time and too busy to return your calls, especially if they're highly rated. That probably means they're really in demand and really good and have a lot of word of mouth as well. Find someone who has a complete tool set. It's not just a visual inspection. They are doing the air spore trap sampling. Sure, you shouldn't just rely on that, but the bulk testing too, they're using a
bare minimum said air circulating and constantly filtering air is highly important in high humid climate. I agree with you, sir. And I've learned this now the hard way. California girl going to a Texas area, Midwest areas. It's been different. It's been very different indeed.
A thermal gun behind the walls. They're really moving things around. Yeah. They're also looking for the signs within the home, not just pure visible mold. So some of the signs we mentioned, like the peeling paint, they're looking at the common places like under the sink in the kitchen. I would also couple all of that with a dust test too. It's important. So then you get a historical fingerprint of everything that room has been exposed to. Try to keep it to 1 test per room. And the dust test, really quick, is just a Swiffer pad that you wipe down different surfaces with. Try to get at least 10 different surfaces, saturate the Swiffer pad, and then mail that in. And that's a test that we offer as well.
Oh,
we believe that also helps pick up some of these hidden mold issues too.
Yeah, that's smart.
Might do that in the near future. That's pretty cool to know that.
Have you heard? So if people are overwhelmed, they should just get blood work done and start there. Because I know the whole thing is pretty overwhelming. And you're like, this is a huge problem. One of the tricks I've heard, so tell me if this is true, is if you look in the back of toilets, I swear everywhere I grew up was kind of like black in the back of toilets. And these were clean houses, but I just thought that's what happened. But is that a representation? So apparently when you flush a toilet, it drags in air from the bathroom. And if your air is full of these fragments or mold, then it'll suck into the back of your toilet and start growing in the back of your toilet because there's water there. Have you heard about that for checking out houses? It's good for when you're renting too, because if it looks clean and then you lift up the toilet tank and there's mold in it, you're like, oh, air's probably moldy.
Oh, interesting. A couple of the inspectors I've hired have looked there, but that
I wish I had an inspector or a man who builds houses to confirm that, or if they maybe know another trick about it or something they could add to it. That'd be very interesting. So if there's anybody who's into building and you're catching on right with me right now, drop your name and maybe how I could get a hold of you into the chat. And we'll do an addition to this later on. A shorter edition. No, this is kind of a long video.
That makes total sense to me. And I also think if you have a sump pump or it smells like dirty diapers, or there could be like a sewage issue, that's also another source of biotoxins, specifically endotoxins too. And that should be investigated further. So not just thinking mold, but also thinking, okay, could there be a sewer gas issue or a sewage line issue or some sort of other problematic situation in the home where you could get exposed to other biotoxins?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
That totally makes sense. I've got a group on Facebook that has like 30,000 people and they're all only eating meat. And I'm pretty sure they all have CIRS. I think that's the pattern there. Cause it's always been like, why does this seem to work? Like, why does the diet seem to work for this random array of people? And it does, like, great Band-Aid, but doesn't solve the root problem. So I met my husband.
And not easily sustainable at all, especially with the cost of meat these days. And you shouldn't even be really eating conventional meat. You should be eating grass-fed, grass-finished, which I know everybody's like, it's not doesn't have the same flavor and it doesn't have the same texture to it. But you know what? When your animal is eating a bunch of other toxic things, guess where it goes? It goes into it's changing it on a cellular level. It's in the cholesterol. It's in the meat. And so people on that type of a diet, and maybe you don't have the money to sustain that, let alone get grass-fed or organic like that. How could you afford it, especially today?
And he was on the diet, but he didn't have an autoimmune disorder. It was mostly like he had massive amounts of weight gain as a teenager and serious cognitive issues. But he was kind of the sick kid in his house, and he had a whole bunch of siblings. But it turned out he was next to the bathroom and a pipe had broken in the bathroom and leaked under his floor. So under his floor had water damage, and they kind of blew it out with a fan, which is what my parents did in the basement when we had massive flooding one time as well, with like this much water. And then they just like dry it, because which isn't what you have to do if you have flooding. We could also cover this. Like, you basically have to cut out the drywall.
Correct.
Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, our team loves John Banta's approach to the space. And
yes, you're supposed to rip out all of the infected materials, not just the drywall. So if it's in the floorboards, you got to get rid of the floors. You got to change that out also.
It's really big on removal. So cutting out and not using biocides. We have a concern around some of the chemical treatments because it creates more fragments and these dead species that we think are actually could be more problematic than even the live molds. So what we've seen with patients, even post remediations, especially if there isn't a small particle cleaning or a thorough cleaning after, is that they could get sicker after remediation. And you also touched on a couple of other interesting points too. Under the flooring, what we've seen even with new builds is that they lay down like the LVP, like the nice vinyl flooring, and then the concrete's still wet when they do that because these contractors are in a rush to get the work done. And that could be a hidden mold issue too. Bear
does mold. My browser's messing up. He says, I do mold removal and repairs occasionally. Showers are faulty 90% of the time. Send me an email, sir. Send me an email. starmarie85@gmail.com. We'll talk about this later again. Uncle Guns is in the house. He's been floating around the internet somewhere and finally stopped by. Thank you. And then Bear says, any appliance that requires or uses water should be checked annually. Does that include your refrigerator that has that does filtered water on there? Right? Where would I check on that? Would it be on the inside of the refrigerator or the back of the wall? The back of the wall? Let me know.
Wet concrete?
Yeah, under the flooring.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so there's just so many different things to look into as a homeowner or even a renter, and crawl space is also very common. Basement's very common. So just knowing the anatomy of your home and where the problematic sources could be, just to help tailor the investigation some more if you are experiencing symptoms.
So if people find that overwhelming, have you seen people recover if they don't do anything to their house?
If they're sick and they have CIRS, the issue tends to get worse for those patients. I've seen patients who largely do not have the HLA genetic susceptibility get out of the home and then eventually recover. That's not really scientific. It's like very anecdotal. It's like I meet a lot of people who've had mold exposure and they're telling me their stories, and I see that pattern. And I've also heard people who don't have one of those genetic susceptibilities get out of the environment and they still don't feel fully themselves. Like there were some alterations in how they're feeling too. So I think it's a pretty large set of randomness that I've heard, but for the most part, if you're in the environment, you're sick, you're probably not going to get better if you stay in that environment, and it'll likely get worse and deteriorate over time.
Okay, I know that's like the harsh reality, but that's how you know it's not a scam.
And then turn into some damn chronic disease. No bueno. No bueno. Again, I am not a medical professional. I'm not offering medical advice, but I am talking about my journey and things that I do know and understand, but it's up to you, again, as a viewer, to do your due diligence and seek out a medical professional if you have any questions or concerns.
Too, because people aren't saying, hey, take this supplement and all your problems will be solved. It's like, no, you can't live in the environment with the severe water damage and mold growth. You have to get rid of the mold growth. Then you have to do the treatment, especially like you said, if you have this genetic susceptibility.
Yep.
And the treatment, so you went over it. It's the binder, and you guys suggest clocevalam instead of cholestyramine.
Yeah.
I took cholestyramine. It was brutal. It worked. But you're treating people with clocevalam instead.
Yeah, there's a few reasons for that. The field has largely moved towards clocevalam. One, better tolerated. You tend to have less constipation or some of the side effects, which overall tend to be mild for the far majority of the patients. Two, it's an oral tablet versus the suspension, which it's kind of gritty and sandy, right? Cholestyramine is kind of hard to take. There's also not a great reminder for when to take cholestyramine because it's in between meals. It's not before meals. So that's also great for clocevalam. You're like, okay, I'm about to take a meal. Let me just take a clocevalam binder. And then the last point too is that we noticed very similar symptoms improvement within a few weeks of each other. I know there's a lot of commentary online around a quarter of the binding sites, but one, Dr. Shoemaker and Dr. McMahon have never stated that. And two, the binding sites don't map to symptoms improvement. And three, we've seen that consistently with patients where it's about a few weeks to have similar recovery. Then when you pair with all those other reasons, that makes sense why the field's now moving towards clocevalam versus cholestyramine.
I switched to clocevalam.
Yeah, I love
it. As enjoyable as drinking sand is, which it's not at all. I switched over, and it's way easier. So that's good to know. So ideally you fix the mold exposure. Well, you do the blood work to see what's going on, fix mold exposure, and start treatment at the same time. And it's clocevalam initially. And then what's the next step?
So the next step after their symptoms plateau, usually we do a Marcon's treatment or suspected Marcon's treatment.
So
right?
What is Marcon's?
Marcon's is a problematic microbial colonization that occurs in the deeper nasal passages. What we've noticed is that the majority of these patients, some of our data shows at least 90% of patients end up having this colonization, and it drives down
I just did my blood, and so I'll be having a consult with Deanna on this. I'm going to ask her about this part also. Miss Deanna Winham, do I need to do this nasal thing also in the midst of all the other stuff I'm doing, along with infrared sauna treatments and all the other binders and things that I've got going on?
MSH is the current thesis in the field. And we've noticed symptoms improvement and resolution in patients that then eradicate the MARCONs. So that's all
Pauline,
Dr.
nice to
Shoemaker's
see you.
research over the
Oh,
last
Raid from
30 years.
Trippy. Thank you.
And what we
thank
do is
you.
we prescribe an EDTA and xylitol based nasal spray to address
Rad
that
Young
issue.
in the
We also
house.
think it's addressing
Great
other
sis.
species beyond the MARCONs. It's EDTA, so it's a biofilm disruptor too. So even if the MARCONs isn't there, we do notice improvement, and patients love the experience too
Interesting.
for what we think is a biofilm issue in the nasal passages.
Interesting. Well, it makes sense that if you're going to be breathing in all the time, that mold could grow there, like, or some type of bacterial infection could grow there. It made sense. I didn't really believe it for a while because I'm very skeptical. Even though I'm like going off on all these wild goose chases and everything, was skeptical. And I felt so much better after I moved out of the house and took clostyramine that I tried the EDTA spray and felt awful and stopped and was like, I'm fine. And then
Gross.
I was still very hypersensitive to buildings, and that wasn't kind of going away. So I started EDTA a couple of months ago, and I had full on like mold die-off symptoms again. So the first week I was taking it, like I was having my right leg go numb when I was living in Miami, like numbness and weakness severely, which was entertaining and then terrifying. But as soon as I started the EDTA spray, I had about a week of like numbness and pain and stuff, and I was having nerve pain again. And I was like, no way, this has just been in my nose. Is that why you think people leave these houses and then don't get better?
A light box. I have to pay. Honey, I don't really get any donations, and all this stuff costs me money. Otherwise, I would love to get a light box. Are you trying to say I look bad in my lighting, sir? Tell me now. Be honest. Be kind, but be honest.
There's a few reasons. When what you're describing, first for the listeners, is an intensification reaction to the nasal spray, which can happen, I'd say, more rare than the mainstream for the patients.
Jordan didn't, like, my husband didn't notice the EDTA spray.
Yeah,
he was just like, I think it's improving me, and I was like, I'm dead for a week.
Oh no!
But then
yeah.
it was okay. It was okay.
That'll
And
be,
then
that'll be me. I'm dead for a week because that's about how I feel taking the cell core right now. Like I took it yesterday. The whole system is like, oh God, I could go lay down.
and then I think it helped.
Yeah,
So it wasn't that bad, and I knew what was going on, so it was fine.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a hero's journey. Like you get through that intensification, then things start to feel better. What we've noticed with patients that don't continue to improve is that it could be a stubborn MARCON situation, so ongoing colonization, especially if patients don't continue the entire course of treatment, or they're kind of sporadic with it. So that can happen, and especially if you're getting re-exposed a lot, you're more susceptible to that. Is our clinical observation. So yes, we think so. And also you tend to need to go through all the steps to have the maximal amount of recovery. And what we've seen so far through Dr. Shoemaker's work and Dr. Scott McMahon's work is that roughly 90% of the patients, so I'm not including the very hypersensitive patients in this, that's part of the 10%, get somewhere between 70 to 90% better. And that's also part of the opportunity and vision for what we're doing too, is what if
I was in the sun earlier today. I took a walk. So, and I take 2 vitamin D 5,000. Sometimes I'll take 3. My vitamin D levels are actually pretty good compared to most Americans, shockingly enough.
If our research can help get 100% of patients to 100%, right? Like I think 90% to the 70 to 90% is a great starting point, a phenomenal starting point for a field that hasn't really had a lot of answers for patients, and it's not embedded in standard medical practice. But I really think we can really go for the 100% and the 100%. Like that would be a really noble goal for us.
That would be amazing. Yeah. I think my family's in that 10%, unfortunately, especially my dad. It's just so inflammatory. We redid his CIRS markers in the summer, and I was like, they looked so bad. They were worse than when I was having a hard time walking upstairs.
This is something that Michaela would even say and agree to, because, just everything's making her sick. Everything's making us all sick. I agree with her though. I'm not totally against what she's saying. He goes, sit in the sun, but put on sunscreen because the sun causes cancer, but not too much sunscreen because that causes cancer. And oxygen, and don't forget, it also kills off the reefs in the ocean, right? And then that causes cancer too. So don't breathe very much. Yeah, just stop breathing, everyone. All the elites will be happy that way, because we're just a bunch of dirty consumers. And what is it that they say? Our not the ozone. What do they call that? I can't remember right now. I'm hungry. I'm very hungry right now.
And his markers were so much worse than that. And I was like, my God.
Oh, carbon footprint. We're just a bunch of dirty carbon footprint leaving consumers. So don't breathe. Make them all happy. No, breathe more and breed more babies. Piss them all off.
This is him. He's on tour all the time. So I was like, that's probably not a great idea until you solve this CIRS problem. But he's like, no.
Yeah.
Talking to the people. But yeah, his was brutal. And then his EBV, so Epstein-Barr,
I will do that.
was just off the charts. And I was like, your immune system is not even working.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the Epstein-Barr that was necessarily the problem.
It's
but it's just like nothing to counteract any type of. Is this possibly what happens with Lyme too? Like you mentioned this a bit earlier, that if your immune system is just not functioning properly, that these exposures that maybe wouldn't make everybody sick but make some people sick, your body just can't handle them.
Yeah, we think there's this accumulation effect with these different microbial exposures, like fungal, bacterial, viral, over time, causing innate immune system dysregulation. So your first line of defense going haywire and then leading to a state of chronic inflammation. So we think that's what's happening with these patients.
They have tests for Lyme also, by the way, now. Just like I did the test for mold, you can also get tests for Lyme.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense why people started to get long COVID too. Just too much burden. How much do you think like chemicals we're exposed to and diet plays a role in this? Is that also an accumulation of problems that are making people more susceptible, or do you think mold is the primary one?
I think there's this concept of the exposome, like your total exposure surface area. I think if you have a bad diet, bad health, a history of health issues, and if you're also just like immunocompromised too, you're going to have worse outcomes.
Yep.
What I've noticed with some of our like athlete patients, they tend to recover very quickly. They don't come in with as many symptoms, but they do notice it more. They're very in touch with their bodies. So that's an interesting observation. And we do notice as well that patients are responsive to the low amylose diet too. So eliminating starches, which it makes sense why you're seeing success with the carnivore diet, as well as avoiding gluten too, because we tend to see patients having higher
because sugar feeds it. Sugar helps it with breeding grounds for it all. I'm starting to stutter because I'm flipping hungry. Sorry.
Particularly add an antibody, so they're reactive to gluten. So diet does play a role. We tend to advise on a low amylose diet, avoiding gluten for several of the patients, and also just your total health history and exposure history.
Same thing for lupus. They don't want you to have a lot of gluten. Gluten is wheat, barley, and anything in that rye, any of those types of things. And it isn't because inherently it's bad. It's because it's been so synthesized here in America, and it's all GMO, that it no longer has one protein. It has two. It's a double spike protein into the blood, which perforates the gut into the bloodstream. So they want to remove all those types of irritants from the system in order to lower the inflammation, because lupus and all these other things create inflammation in the body, which breeds more disease, right? So you want to take out all the triggers as much as you possibly can, because let's be frank, just breathing oxygen can be a trigger. So, but at least the ones you can control the best. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I do know a thing or two about a thing or two, but this is not medical advice. And if you have any questions, you should always seek out professional help. This is my advisory.
History coming in, but some people are just a lot more resilient too. Especially if you don't have that genetic susceptibility that somehow gets people sick. We think it's an antigen presentation issue, which really simply is you can see your body as a castle, and you have these security guards right in front of the castle, and these microbial forces that come in could be wearing the same outfits as those security guards, and it's hard to distinguish who's friend and who's foe. But the alarm system knows something is off, so you have your alarm system, your inflammatory response, your cytokine storm going off continuously. So that represents the antigen presentation issue. It's like who's friend, who's foe. It's not really getting recognized, but there's this dysregulated alarm system going off. So if you don't have that dynamic in your body, that genetic susceptibility to, you're also in a better spot. So I think it's the sum of all these different things together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I did some research. So the HLA genes are interesting. Like the celiac gene is an HLA gene. There's a gene for ankylosing spondylitis. That's an HLA gene. And it just seems like some people, and I think there's benefits. I don't know what the benefit of like the CIRS genetics are, but I know with celiac, or I believe I read back in the day that it's like, why would people develop celiac disease, which is just your body really responds negatively to gliadin with gluten.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they had an easier time identifying, their body had an easier time identifying certain types of viruses. So it did kind of make sense.
Now, oddly enough, they've done studies also the differences between the wheat and the flour and whatnot over here versus in Europe, where they're not allowed to do any of that stuff. And people with celiac or other sensitivities to gluten or any of those types of things, they go over there and they have the same type of food. They not only lose weight, but they don't have any of those same allergic reactions that they would normally by eating over here. What did I say? Because it's all GMO'd. It's a double spike protein, not one. And so if you really want to try to clean that up, you're going to want to go to original form strains. Unfortunately, not so easy and definitely going to be far more costly. One of those strains, though, that I use, especially when I bake bread or do other different things, it's einkorn, which is a pain in the butt only because it doesn't rise for cookies. Okay, well, I still like a nice, soft, fluffy cookie. All right, and so does the kids, right? But otherwise, it's better for you, and it actually naturally has 8 grams of protein already in it. And it actually tastes better, but not for a cookie so much, okay? It's kind of a flat, kind of gets all flat, but that's all right. It still tastes all right.
It's just now everybody eats gluten, so it's not great for people who have celiac disease, but HLA is interesting. What percentage of your patients-ish don't have the 1 in 4 like bad genetics?
We haven't.
Polly knows what's up. It's the glyphosate they spray on everything, even organic wheat, oat, etc., etc. That's a whole different animal. You're not totally wrong though. That's also glyphosate is known carcinogenic. What does carcinogenic things do? Creates cancers and whatnot, which they've been sued for many, many, many times, but yet still, they're still allowed to get away with it, but they're not allowed to do that. It's the only thing about Europe that I like anymore. Okay. Because Europe is going down the shitter, but at least they are not allowed to mess with the food. But here in America, all bets are off. They wait till people are dropping dead before they'll say, okay, all right, well, we've made enough profit. Everybody's gotten sued enough. Let's go ahead and taper it down a bit, shall we? Take it down a notch.
I didn't map that out for the current patients, mainly because we do have an option for the far majority of patients to start treatment without even doing the labs. And it's mainly driven by the symptoms we would expect and known exposure that's validated. So we look for that and start patients on treatment. And if they're unresponsive to treatment, we're transparent with our patients. We're like, we would expect to see this by this stage. We have to have a discussion to understand, do we continue or do we churn and recommend referring out that patient too? So we don't have that data set. We do have that though, out of the R&D side of what we're doing. I don't have that number offhand, but Dr. Scott estimates roughly 5 to 7% of patients end up getting CIRS that don't have one of these genetic susceptibilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not super high.
She has nice skin.
But you shouldn't be in a moldy place anyway, even if you don't have the genes.
Yeah, it's like single digit percentages from what they've seen in clinical practice. But
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. So it's that closely related to the genetic thing?
It's pretty high signal, it seems.
So if you have, in order to get CIRS, do you have to have, I can't remember, 2 genes that are HLA problematic ones to be considered CIRS?
Oh, great.
Or is one good enough?
To get a CIRS diagnosis, we typically like to see 5 abnormal markers, and that could include the HLA haplotype. It can also include, it can include some of these other markers too, like the MMP9, the MSH, the TGF-beta1, C4A, VEGF. So that's all included in the mixed bag of what are your 5 dysregulated markers.
Let me guess, I also magically got that lottery ticket right of goodness right there. I said, do I have? Because I seem to hit pretty hard with all of it. So my gosh, I must have that. I'm going to have to ask Deanna, should we do a genetic testing? I don't know if I really want to know. How about we just fix the problem and I get better? How about that one?
That's one piece.
Me all paranoid.
HLA helps because it's so high signal. So that tends to be a really common one in the field. We also look for the symptom clusters. We like to see 8 of those boxes selected. If you're an adult, it's different for pediatric care, and then also some sort of known exposure too. And as you know, CIRS is pretty umbrella. It includes a lot of different biotoxin illnesses. So that exposure could be Pfiesteria, it could be Ciguatera, it could be cyanobacteria. It doesn't have to be mold necessarily. In fact, we're getting more and more excited about, is it potentially the endotoxins and actinobacteria too? That's a major driver as well. But
that's like, does that appear in a house like mold?
Right now with inspectors, so yes, when you have water damage, you can expect to see like a whole microbial stew happening. It's not really tested for by inspectors. It's really just this nascent data set we're accumulating through dust testing. which does account for way more microbial species. I think that's an area the field needs to do a lot more research in, is really mapping out, similar to what we saw with the ERMI and HERS-Me2, where we have...
I'm lost, sir. What do you mean? I might. Now maybe an extra light box around. If I do, it's yours. Okay, thank you. I think I know what we're talking about.
It was roughly 1,000 data
You're going to
points
give
across
me
different
that?
homes, mapping the DEST test
You don't
results
have to do
health
that.
outcomes. Like, we
I would
really need to
appreciate
do that,
that,
and
but you don't
better
have
understand what percentage of patients are sick due to some of these other microbial species. But some of our really early data set, which I'm challenging internally, there's this concept of there's specific genes you can look at that are likely tied to these endotoxins and actinobacteria. So some of these like bacterial sources.
So genes like these turn genes on? What
Yeah.
is associated?
Yeah, so through our RNA-seq data, but that's not really a direct way to measure that. So I'm hoping to have a more 360-degree analysis of what's going on with these patients. Right now, it's in the very early innings. Like, it's more of a theory getting developed by some of these clinical researchers and Dr. Shoemaker.
Have you had patients that have CIRS severely enough that it's presenting as neurodegenerative disorders recover?
So I've heard
Please
of
say
these
yes.
case studies through Dr. Scott and Dr. Shoemaker. Yes.
Oh,
they've
thank
seen,
God.
patients present with what was diagnosed or looks like MS, for example, and that was able to reverse a lot of these Alzheimer's, Parkinson's type diagnoses as well. So those patients tend to recover. But for our patient cohort, it's too early to say right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. That would be crazy. Well, I think this is revolutionary in a really terrifying way. But like, people, it's better to know than to not know, right?
Indeed.
Better than living in a country where like, why does everyone get sick and die here compared to other places? What's going on? Do you think that there's any association with like the change in building materials breeding some type of worse mold here?
I mentioned that at the very beginning of the stream when I was talking to a friend of mine. And I was asking him, you've been over there, what do you think the difference is? Because I was like, we use a lot of vinyls and plastics, and we're using a lot of sprays for sealants and stuff that they probably don't use in Europe. And he said they don't have HVAC systems like we do. And so most of it's coming out of HVAC systems along with pipes, right? So, we got a bit of a problem, don't we? But I guarantee you, this is probably going to be a huge topic in the next 5 years, where everybody didn't know anything about like all the different key terms coming out of the medical industry, the fads, like the microbiome. I knew about the microbiome over 15 years ago in my early 20s when I first started this journey. And I paid $500 per doctor visit. Okay. That didn't even include blood workups or any of the stuff they wanted to do. In the top 3 clinics, Dr. Nick Delgado's clinic, Whitaker's clinic, that Deanna Winham came out. Now she has her own. She studied underneath him. And there was one other one. So now everybody knows about the microbiome, right? They're hearing all about it. And everybody's jumping on the fad and selling all the stuff. I already knew about that stuff. So watch, within 5 years, everybody's going to start knowing more about mold-borne illnesses. And I hope to God, RFK, if you're watching, I'm going to reach out to you now. I'm going to do it like I do with everybody. I eventually reach out. I'm going to talk to you about creating a medical code to distinguish mold-borne illnesses, because that's not even on the books yet. And then talk about how we can, maybe move this along while they're still in office, because after they're not, nobody's going to give a shit. Everything's going to go right back down the shitter, where at least where healthcare is concerned, and the things that they're allowed to get away with.
Like, is that possible, or do you think it's just like, why does America seem badly impacted when there are other countries that have high humidity where you're not seeing?
Yes,
the rate of
Polly,
climate
I know
skyrocket?
about chemtrails.
That's interesting. We're not entirely sure why that.
I've watched them in real time. I used to film them when I used to take walks in California, because they do it more there than they would in certain other places in America. And part of that is because California is still one of the main producers of agriculture that goes around for the rest of the country, believe it or not. And I used to watch it and film it in real time, and then watch the plane go by, spit the shit out, and then watch it spread until the grid touches each other, and then it completely covers the sky. Yeah, I know all about that stuff. And I also know I also know part of what they're putting in there, but that's a whole different stream.
Why that is. We're not entirely sure why that is. I've been asking that same question, and there are other countries that do seem to be impacted, especially the UK and some of these European countries.
Yeah.
Like we've had a number of patients reach out to us wanting to travel from Europe to get our care here in the States. But it's not entirely clear. There's some theories from the community on why that is, but I don't feel confident in knowing
Nobody
that.
knows yet?
Yeah.
Honey, I can't even smoke weed. I have a problem with smoke, okay? I grew up around a bunch of chain smokers and they'd hotbox my ass. And I'm the only one that came out in the family who not only doesn't smoke, can't smoke, and got bronchitis from it. So thank you, Adam's family, for fucking up the rest of my future health and life in the forefront. No, I'm just.
I feel like it could be. I don't know what I read and I've been on like Reddit and going through blogs and things, so who knows how.
Yeah.
And it's all speculative.
It's very
and it's super speculative. But like, I feel like it has to be. Well, we know that houses are sealed up, and the more modern houses don't have as much airflow. So in other countries that say have higher humidity, maybe their houses aren't as good, but they have more indoor-outdoor air exchange. So maybe it's that, or maybe we.
Yeah, they don't have HVAC systems and they use old-fashioned radiators to warm their homes. But also a lot of those places in Europe don't get as bloody ass hot as America does because we're more south, closer to Mexico, Ecuador, and all those other tropical places. So we have different climates, hence the HVAC systems.
We introduced something in like the 80s in houses that bred some sort of super bacteria or mold or something, like an antifungal, because they had mold resistant paints that they put everywhere. And then it was like, is this doing the same thing as antibiotic resistance? And we're just like breeding super molds. It's like, I don't know if that played a role.
I doubt it.
That's one of the theories that's one of the theories.
But if you watched me yesterday, I was reading about a new mold that is heating up radiation and the BBC put out in news resources at Chernobyl. Their life is springing all around Chernobyl again with this new super mold that's eating up the radioactive materials. But I highly doubt it's quite the same thing, Michaela, but I appreciate the sentiment. You never know. There's always a small possibility.
For sure, it gets
we
me
have
curious.
no idea.
Yeah, it's like, did we have like directed evolution and create these like super mold species in the home? Like that's definitely one that's in the
nervous laugh.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to? So what did you do? You got sick in Miami, and you did a bunch of research. How did you figure out it was mold? Did you figure out it was mold? Had you heard of mold illness already?
Zero clue. I had no idea.
She looks Cuban. Ariana, you Cubana, let me know. one half of the one to another.
Mold could do this to my health. I was like very blissfully unaware. I've always had good health. It was very weird that these things were happening to me. It was actually a friend that worked at a functional health clinic that tipped me off, where she's like, your symptoms and what you're talking about sounds a lot like mold. We see a lot of these patients at the clinic. And I'm like, no way can mold cause these health issues. And I was like, you know what, now that you mentioned that, there is a weird smell in my home that I've noticed the first week. And I've been reporting that to my landlord. I'm like, there's a really weird smell. I thought it was like a cigarette smell, but not. It was just like this, like, it was a little off center from a cigarette smell. It wasn't a smell I've smelled before. So that was really weird.
Like
and then the initial inspector that came in deemed there wasn't a problem. That was through the landlord. I was very, very skeptical. I'm like, okay, I know the Miami landlord reputation. I'm just going to hire my own inspector online and find someone credible. And then there was high levels found in the air spore trap sample that was in the HVAC system. And we even found black mold under the sink. Knowing what I know now, I also suspect there could have been mold behind the walls too. There was some staining and water damage in one of the closets. We didn't look back there, but I think there was just a more pervasive mold issue that I just wasn't aware of.
And then did you move out and did you immediately start CIRS treatment, or did you try some other things first? And then how long did it take you to start feeling better?
Yeah. Luckily, I found a shoemaker certified physician early on in the process. But before that, I was ping-ponged to different referrals. I went to specialists. I was referred to an immunologist, allergist, pulmonologist, neurologist. I did a battery of lab tests, which I was phobic of needles. So I also got a therapist to help me work over my needle phobia. Like it was just this whole journey. Not in victimhood about it. Like hindsight, really grateful it happened.
I don't like needles much either, which is odd considering I have no problems with Botox. I haven't had any for a while, but Mama needs some. But I'm just saying, I don't like needles, but I'll do it if I have to. Just don't let me watch it when you're taking my blood. I'm like, like a big old weenie.
happened. I think it gave me a lot of purpose, but also went down the functional health clinic route. I had low ferritin, but I wasn't anemic. So I was like, let me try iron pills. I'm like, okay, I feel a little better, but I still feel pretty sick. And then I finally got to a shoemaker physician. I started treatment like end of December 2022 or early January 2023, and then started noticing a pretty significant difference on the binders within 2 weeks for me. Every patient's different, but I had a moment where this is a little dramatic, but I fell to the floor just crying because I felt like I got my brain back. Like it was something I thought I lost.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very emotional.
Good.
Yeah. I thought I lost that, and I was just like doomlining my future. Like, okay, what can I realistically do? Like, what value do I have? It wasn't clear to me because I felt like I can't think, I can't process information. I'm not able to learn. I'm not able to have the energy to really build anything. Like I just felt really defeated. So that was the turning point, and I was like, okay, I actually feel like I feel kind of good now. Yeah. Feel better. Yeah.
No, I totally.
The thing that's working for her is that she's probably didn't have a baby, number one, because that lowers your immune system when you're around that shit. That's what happened to me. Number two, she's young, so you can rebound when you're younger, right? And number three, she probably caught it in time. I almost bet you if I would have caught it in time and then gotten out of there with it right before I would have had that 3-month-long ear infection, I bet you I wouldn't have this problem. I almost bet you. But that's kind of the problem with most disease, in a way. You have a propensity to have an issue on a cellular level, right? And then you put it into the right environment and you feed it all the wrong things, and the next thing you know, it turns into some type of a disease. That's kind of in theory how most things are born. So I'm thinking in the back of my head that, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass, man, if I would have caught it sooner. I had no clue though. No clue whatsoever. Didn't know jack shit about, on a health-wise level of mold. I was thinking all about the product and the stuff from my warehouse and my business. I wasn't thinking anything about health stuff. Never I once thought it would cause a major health issue.
Totally get that. I had that kind of with diet when I turned my health around with diet, where I hit a point where I was so sick and I was on so many medications that I was like, oh, I'm going to die. Like, I'm not getting better. This isn't getting better unless something changes, and the medical system was not helping.
I don't know. She might be, but if she's from Miami, I have a sneaking suspicion that she's probably Cuban or something of that nature. Now, even though that side of my family is from Cuba, most of my family is actually German and actually from Spain, from Valencia, Spain. And my lineage on that side goes all the way back to, I've said before, Isabella and Ferdinand. There's a crust and all that type of shit. And then on the other side, the European side, I'm related to more than 4 seated presidents. Gee. Where's my cut? Where's my cut of the wealth on this? I get jack.
Helping, because I'd been in it for 15 years. I was like, if I keep doing this and the trajectory keeps going downhill, I'm screwed. And then thank God I managed to get my symptoms under control with diet until I got sick in Nashville. Actually, everyone knows that too. I moved to Nashville. My unit flooded, and this didn't occur to me at the time. I was visiting London, and my unit flooded, and they moved us to a different unit. Then they cleaned it and moved all our stuff back in. And I was like, I thought I was having severe tree allergies. Like, what is happening?
Yep.
And I have this podcast I might have taken it down, but it might still be up. Where my face
watering,
is really, just a puff.
Nasal
and people were like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know. I have no internal dialogue. I can't even think, and my face is puffy. What's going on?"
Yep.
Thought it was tree allergies. Moved to Miami. Moved into another moldy house. Then another one. It was like the third one where it's like, oh, mold. But it's terrifying.
It's scary.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I think people should be aware of this. MoldCo. You can get blood work done. I think anyone who's experiencing health problems, even food sensitivities, I would say, because that's a big sign of mold exposure,
yes,
right?
It is.
Heightened food sensitivities.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, especially gluten, especially if you notice the IBS type symptoms. That tends to be one of the earlier symptoms that present. Definitely suspect mold, especially if it's not just...
Okay. Well, I think we've pretty much beaten that dead horse, right? You can check out her company, and you can also check out my doctor, Dr. Deanna Winham, at wholehumanlife.com. And Dr. Nick Delgado, he's also wonderful. He was actually sweet enough and the gentleman enough to write me an email the other day telling me a different type of protocol to help me in my journey. So as we are preparing to do our interview, I want you to know that he is a stand-up guy and he's actually a doctor. So some of you who might think he's probably some people have been like, oh, is this guy like a hippie type doctor or something? No, he's actually a doctor. He came out of Loma Linda. He's studying underneath several different people. Let's see, is my book still here? No, my book is in my room. I have one of his books that I had bought in well over 10 years ago in my early 20s that I had started reading of his, because when he started his journey, he unfortunately had a mini stroke in his early 20s, which started him on his journey of health and hormones and optimizing diet and all of those things. And he's 70 years old. He looks fantastic. He's in great shape and he still competes and lifts on a competitive level. So gentlemen, your longevity and your health is a possibility. Same thing for you ladies. And so that's where part of my passion is, as I keep pushing my channel through the journey and through the algorithms. I stop and I touch on different things, but in actuality, my goal is to convert into doing all interviews and medical stuff and, just really interesting things, it's kind of stuff like you would see on Diary of a CEO and whatnot. So that's where I'm geared toward, gentlemen and ladies. Also, if I can get over the rest of this respiratory and all that stuff, I'll be putting out my album this year with goals to be doing live shows, because I miss doing live stuff. I have enough of the talent and the drive for it, and I really miss being in front of people and entertaining people and doing stuff like that. So that's where I'm geared from. Okay, I have an entertainment industry background, and I've done studio work. I've been a live musician, bass player, backup singer, writer. I started off being a professional dancer, coming out of Tina Landon's prior studios, to which she frequent all the time. I would have probably landed the deal, but it's a pretty cutthroat industry, and all the girls conspired against me that I wouldn't show up because I was number one in the entire academy. I was also the only one to ever get picked for auditions. So all those bitches, all you bitches out there, you can eat it. You still sucked at dancing, honey. I still kicked your ass no matter what. I got all the callbacks. You got nothing. So gotta grind it in just a little bit in case they run into me, because they will. Anyways, I love you all. And you, Bear, send me an email at starmarie85gmail.com. That's 1R. All right? 1R. And we'll talk more about this, and we'll bring this also up on another podcast, because people need to be aware of how dangerous mold is. And if you can take somebody like me who is perfectly healthy and then get me around that stuff for just a couple of years, not knowing what's going on, to give me an autoimmune disease that will plague me the rest of my life unless God undertakes, okay? Then you should take it from me that it's more dangerous than what you think. Anyways, I love you all, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Nova Star at School of Thought, which will be coming into being Star Nova podcast very, very soon. Hey, Bandit, I didn't see you up there. I'm sorry, honey. Wish you all a rest of your safe week, and you're getting close to Friday. Friday is a fun day. Remember, wrap it before you tap it in case I don't see you in between. All types of diseases are on the rise right now. So be safe, kids out there. I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.